Hi guys. Tonight we settle into the quiet hush of an ancient, frozen world. You feel the soft weight of blankets around you, but in your imagination you stand on a windswept plain where colder air than you have ever breathed slips along your cheeks like a warning. Snow crackles beneath your feet. The horizon is a smear of silver twilight. A flock of ravens wheels overhead, as if debating whether you even belong here. For a moment you shiver and think to yourself that you probably will not survive this if you had to face it for real. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you are listening right now, feel free to tell me in the comments where you are and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights and let the slow drift of ancient winter guide you deeper. You trudge forward through a world that feels barely alive. The wind pushes at your shoulders as if trying to slide you back to safety. But you keep going because you want to understand how anyone lasted even a single season out here. Your breath forms a glowing puff, and your boots sink into drifts that whisper under your weight. Ahead, the land rolls like frozen dunes. Somewhere out there, Neanderthals once stood exactly where you are standing now. They survived here, not for a single harsh winter, but for hundreds of thousands of years. That is a mainstream fact repeated in classrooms and museums. Yet when you feel this imaginary chill settling into your bones, you cannot help wondering how these small groups of humans managed to thrive in a place where even frost seems to have opinions. You keep walking, letting the landscape unfold. Ice plates the rocks. A few hardy grasses poke out, like stubborn survivors clinging to life. The sky glows with that faint metallic light that winter pulls from thin air. You sense that each color around you is muted on purpose, as if the world wants to save every scrap of energy. As you observe all this, a playful thought crosses your mind. There is an old fringe claim that Neanderthals could sense temperature shifts in the air more sharply than modern humans, almost like built-in weather barometers. It might be exaggerated, but it makes you imagine them pausing mid-step to feel subtle changes the way animals sometimes do. You move closer to a small rise in the ground and crouch, brushing your fingers along a patch of frost. You imagine a Neanderthal kneeling in this same spot nearly 400,000 winters ago. Their footprints would have pressed deep enough to hold tiny shadows. They would have carried heavy muscles under thick skin, shaped partly by cold and partly by the demands of daily life. You picture wide noses that warmed the air better before it reached their lungs. The scientific community often highlights that anatomical detail, but historians still argue whether those features gave them a significant survival advantage or whether culture and behavior mattered far more. As you stand there, you feel your heartbeat settle into a slow rhythm. The winter quiet almost lulls you. Your eyelids grow heavier while a new layer of imagery surrounds you. You picture a Neanderthal group emerging from behind a ridge. They do not rush. Their movement is steady, grounded, efficient. They walk as people who know this land intimately, who can read the slightest shift in the snow. You watch their shoulders rise and fall, their breaths plume upward like tiny fires. Their faces glow with reddish tones, warmed slightly by exertion and the low sun. You follow them silently, letting their presence fill the cold air with a sense of purpose. As you trail behind them, one of them pauses, kneeling beside a patch of disturbed snow. You drift closer to see what they see. A faint depression suggests that a hare passed here earlier in the day. The Neanderthal runs thick fingers along the softened edge where snow met warm fur. You notice how gently they move, almost lovingly, as if the snow is a page they are reading. That level of attention becomes a core part of your understanding of their world. They read winter the way you read a bedtime story, slowly and with full focus. You press ahead with them. A cold gust of wind slips inside your collar, teasing a low shiver down your spine. You hug yourself and imagine how they would handle that same gust. They would probably tighten the hides around their shoulders, or shift their group formation to shelter the youngest at the center. Even now, you sense how communal their survival must have been. You imagine them exchanging low murmurs that do not quite reach your ears, a gentle hum of cooperation that feels strangely soothing. Suddenly, you notice something interesting. A cluster of dark stones arranged in a faint ring. You kneel by it. Snow has filled the gaps, but you brush it aside to reveal charcoal flecks beneath. A fire once lived here. You breathe softly, as if not to disturb its memory. This tiny find pulls you deeper into the story because you realize that Neanderthals kept fire going through endless nights, tending embers the way someone might tend a sleeping child. Even now you picture one of them crouched over this fire ring, leaning close to breathe life into the glowing ash. You rise again and follow the imagined group as they continue their march. Each step seems deliberate. They conserve energy. They move with awareness. And when you look closely, you sense something gentle under all that strength. This harsh land shaped them into people who respected the cold more than they feared it. Every crunch of snow beneath their feet becomes a quiet reminder that survival is not just about fighting the cold. It is about knowing it well enough to avoid wasting strength on battles you cannot win. You lift your gaze. Far ahead, the horizon begins to warm with the faintest tint of orange, as though the sun is promising a break from the cold. You breathe deeply and feel warmth gather inside your chest, even though the air around you stays icy. You imagine how Neanderthals must have cherished mornings like this. The way the light touched their faces, the way the shadows softened, the way the land gave them small signals that the day might be manageable. Walking in their footsteps, you let your body relax. Your shoulders loosen. Your breath deepens. You feel the story drawing you along gently, like a hand guiding you through twilight. You think again about the traces they left behind. Charcoal, bones, stone tools, footprints sealed in ancient mud. Nothing grand, nothing flashy, yet each piece a whisper that they were here. And the more you let those whispers blend with the sound of the wind in your imagination, the more you understand how profound it was that these humans learned to thrive in such relentless cold. You pause for a final moment before the story advances. Snowflakes drift around you like slow falling feathers. The icy air sighs along the ridge. You stand in the hushed dawn of a world both fierce and beautiful, ready to follow those ancient survivors wherever they lead next. You keep moving forward without breaking the quiet rhythm that Section 1 settled into. The Neanderthals you follow seem to glide across the frozen ground, and you let their pace guide you towards something more intimate. You notice how each one naturally angles their body against the wind, shoulders slightly hunched, hides wrapped close, faces steady. It is not heroic or dramatic, it is simply practical. And right now you want to understand how they managed to find warmth in places where warmth barely existed. A low ridge rises ahead, shaped like a gentle wave frozen mid-motion. The Neanderthals lead you toward it because they know something you do not. As you reach the crest, you peer down to see a shallow depression tucked into the land. It is almost invisible from afar. You only notice it because the wind suddenly softens, dropping from your face like a lifted weight. This small dip in the earth acts like a natural shield, a quiet hideaway against winter's sharpest blades. You step into it, and the difference feels remarkable, even in your imagination. The cold is still there, but calmer, less aggressive. You picture a Neanderthal family settling into this spot for a brief rest. They crouch low, using the land as an ally. That simple tactic stands out to you, because it shows that survival here did not depend solely on brute force. One mainstream fact about Neanderthals is that they adapted their shelters to whatever terrain offered. Sometimes it was a deep cave, sometimes a rock overhang, and sometimes a shallow windbreak, no bigger than the one you stand in now. While you watch them arrange themselves, a strange little detail floats back into your memory. You once heard a quirky claim that some groups might have used stacks of damp moss as insulation, pressing it between stones to trap heat like a primitive winter wall. Nobody can be totally sure, but imagining it gives a charming texture to the scene. It makes you think of how resourceful they must have been, gathering anything that could hold warmth for even a moment. One of the Neanderthals kneels near a cluster of stones and begins to shape a small pocket of space between them. The others join in quietly, hands moving with practiced ease. They create a narrow chamber shielded from the wind, barely the size of a large animal hide. You tilt your head curiously. It almost looks like the skeleton of a shelter. And then you realize that is exactly what it is. They are preparing a spot that will trap heat once a fire is built inside. Not a roaring fire, just a small, steady one that warms the rocks and radiates heat slowly outward. You crouch beside them and feel the air shift as the first spark catches. One of the adults is using a piece of pyrite and a sharp flint. The metallic click echoes softly, like two tiny bells chiming. Sparks dance, bright against the muted snow, and soon a curl of pale smoke threads upward. The crackle of tiny twigs fills the quiet space, creating a sound that feels strangely comforting. The warmth spreads gently, and you imagine the group leaning in closer. You can almost feel the heat brushing your knuckles. As the shelter warms, you reflect on how critical this kind of thinking must have been. These people did not just survive the cold, they manipulated it. They placed themselves in pockets where the wind had less power, used rocks to hold heat, and built structures that lasted long enough to withstand storms. You picture hide coverings stretched across the stone frame, maybe secured with bone pegs or weighted with snow itself. Snow, after all, can insulate surprisingly well if used correctly. The idea feels counterintuitive but deeply clever. You settle into the imaginary shelter with them. The walls glow faintly from the fire's warmth. The smoke trickles upward and escapes through a tiny vent at the top, leaving only a gentle wood aroma lingering inside. You breathe it in slowly. The scent is sharp but soothing. It mixes with the earthy warmth of dried hides. You run your fingers along one of the hides and feel the softness of well-scraped leather. The Neanderthals press the edges of the hide against the ground to prevent drafts. Simply, effective, elegant. As you watch this scene unfold, you remember that historians still argue whether Neanderthals built long-lasting huts similar to early modern humans, or whether they preferred short-term shelters that mirrored the rhythm of the animals they hunted. Imagining both options adds richness to the moment. Maybe this little hide tent is temporary. Maybe it was used for a week, then abandoned for another, a few valleys away. Or maybe there were sturdier structures near habitual migration paths. No matter which idea is closer to the truth, the skill on display feels incredibly grounded. You shift position inside the shelter and feel the warmth gradually building. The rocks around the fire radiate a pleasant glow. One of the Neanderthals places a few more sticks onto the flame, and the crackling intensifies just a little. The sparks swirl upward and disappear. You listen to the sounds of breathing around you. Slow, deep, rhythmic. The cold outside may be merciless, but here inside this little nest, you understand how even the smallest amount of warmth can feel like a powerful victory. A child snuggles against an adult. The hides beneath you soften the hard ground. The warmth spreads to your toes. You reach your hand to a stone wall and feel its heat gently pressing through your palm. There is a sense of calm purpose in the air. Every movement is slow, unhurried. You imagine that when storms blew across the plains, shelters like this must have been havens of quiet endurance. No frantic scrambling, just waiting, breathing, conserving strength. Your thoughts drift to the idea that early humans did not always fight the environment. Sometimes they embraced its rhythms. The land shaped them as much as they shaped it. You feel that truth settling into you like a soft blanket. The Neanderthals sit close, sharing warmth, sharing breath, sharing the moment. You picture the small glow of the fire painting their faces with soft highlights, illuminating the slope of a cheekbone or the curve of a brow. Their eyes reflect the light like deep amber stones. You rise slowly and step just outside the shelter. The wind greets you again, nipping at your cheeks, reminding you how fragile warmth can be in a world like this. Yet now you understand that warmth was never a luxury to them. It was a craft, something to be made deliberately, protected carefully, and used wisely. You brush snow from your sleeves and gaze back at the small hide structure glowing from within. It looks humble, But when you think about the hundreds of thousands of winters Neanderthals endured, it becomes a symbol of their quiet genius. As you turn to follow the group again, the shelter fades behind you like a candle in the dark. The cold world stretches forward, open and demanding, but the memory of that warm pocket stays with you, pulsing gently in your imagination. You step onward, ready to see what other clever tricks these ancient survivors used to steal comfort from the jaws of winter. You shift your weight, letting the cold settle around your ankles again as the Neanderthal group moves ahead. The shelter from Section 2 fades behind you, replaced by the wide breath of winter stretching across the plains. Snow hushes every sound except the faint crunch beneath your feet. And now you follow the group towards something equally vital to survival: the ancient craft of keeping fire alive without ever letting it fall asleep. The wind coils across the ground like a restless creature, but the Neanderthals do not seem troubled. They walk with an alert calm, carrying a small bundle wrapped in hide. You can almost sense the heat tucked inside that little package. When one of them kneels to adjust it, you catch a glimpse of soft smoke drifting out as if someone hid a tiny dragon inside. Your mind connects it instantly. They are carrying embers, carefully protected, so they never need to start fire from scratch on a freezing morning. Archaeologists often point out that Neanderthals knew how to maintain slow-burning coals for long stretches, sometimes days at a time. That little detail anchors the scene, giving it weight. You draw a bit closer, curious about the bundle. The hide wrapping looks darkened from long use. Inside it, dry bark and powdered fungi help the ember smolder without suffocating. It is a simple but brilliant setup. You crouch to observe and feel a faint wave of warmth escaping into the air. The ember glows weakly, just enough to stay alive. Someone in the group checks it by blowing gently, creating a soft pulse of light. You watch smoke thread upward in delicate swirls. That moment makes you think of a curious theory you once heard. Some believe that Neanderthals may have carried different types of tinder fungi for different weather conditions, almost like having a cold season kit and a damp season kit. It may or may not be perfectly accurate, but imagining such experimentation adds charm to the story. It makes you picture them collecting special mushrooms from rotting logs, testing each one, seeing which burned slowest and which caught a spark quickest. The group moves again. You walk with them into a narrow pass between two lumpy outcrops. The rocks provide a bit of cover from the wind, and here the Neanderthals decide to stop. One adult kneels and begins to prepare a small fire pit. They brush away loose snow with quick, efficient movements. The pit is tiny, barely larger than a bowl, but the care they take with it feels almost ceremonial. As you watch, you are reminded of a widely accepted observation among researchers. Fire was central to Neanderthal daily life, not just for warmth but also for tool-making, cooking and protection from predators. You can easily see why. The warm glow that soon follows feels like a gentle heartbeat. They unwrap the ember bundle again. The smoker inside looks fragile, like the last breath of a dying star. One Neanderthal blows on it softly. The ember brightens. Another places dried grass around it. A faint flame curls upward, trembling in the wind. You lean in closer as the fire grows, building into a modest but steady flame. The warmth pushes against your face, a welcome contrast to the icy air. The group gathers around it, their shoulders forming a quiet circle. You glance down at their hands. Thick fingers grip sticks with careful control. One of them uses a piece of flint to shape a slightly larger branch into something usable. The tapping sound has a rhythmic tone that lulls you. As the child from earlier settles near the fire, you notice how their cheeks glow with a gentle pink. Fire does not just warm the body. It shapes the mood, softens the harsh landscape, and turns cold nights into moments of human connection. While the fire burns, you consider a lively debate you once overheard among scholars. Some specialists believe Neanderthals mastered fire-making from scratch, while others suggest they more often relied on preserving existing flames. The truth may sit somewhere in the middle. Imagining them occasionally struggling against damp wood or stubborn sparks gives them a relatable softness. They were expert survivors, but not perfect, and imperfections make them feel strangely close to you as you watch them work. The flames shift colors. Orange deepens into red at the base. The smoke rises gently, leaving a faint wood scent that mixes with the crisp edge of winter. You breathe it in slowly, the way you might savor the smell of a campfire at night. You feel a warm ripple slide along your spine. The Neanderthals sit still, leaning in, letting the heat soak into their bones. You notice how they place stones near the fire, so they will warm and continue radiating heat even after the flames die down. This small fire pit becomes the center of the world for a moment. The snow around it melts into delicate beads that glisten in the flames. A Neanderthal stirs the coals with a stick, coaxing more heat from them. You watch their face as they work. Their eyes reflect the firelight, twinkling like amber glass. You sense the peace that radiates from this circle of warmth. Winter cannot reach them here. Not fully, not as long as fire keeps its steady pulse. You stretch your hands toward the heat and feel your fingertips tingle. For a moment you imagine how many thousands of nights just like this must have happened across deep time. Tiny fires glowing in the dark. People gathered close. Breath mixing with smoke. Stories whispered. Warmth shared. The thought comforts you deeply. As the fire settles into a slow burn, a few sparks float upward. They rise past your face, flicker in the cold air, then vanish into the pale sky. You follow their path, letting your mind drift. You wonder how often those ancient nights were filled with sparks drifting toward the stars. You wonder if children ever tried to catch them. You wonder what memories would be tied to each flame. The group eventually prepares to move on. They pack the embers again, cushioned with bark dust. The fire pit is carefully covered, so it will not attract predators. A few warm stones are wrapped in hides to carry the heat longer, turning them into little winter treasures. You help them in your imagination, placing your hands on the warm surface of one stone. It radiates comfort. You tuck it under your arm as if it belongs to you. When everyone is ready, they step once more into the open land. The cold greets you again, crisp and bold. But now you understand something crucial. Fire was not a luxury. It was a companion, a tool, a guardian. Even in the deepest night, even in storms that could kill within minutes, they kept its sleeping heart alive. You move forward with renewed calm. The fire behind you fades, but the warmth it left in your imagination travels with you, pulsing gently like a reminder that survival often comes from small flames, not roaring blazes, tiny decisions, tiny embers, tiny moments of care. Ahead, the sky begins to dim again as clouds drift in. The landscape has a soft bluish glow that seems to muffle every sound. You breathe slowly, letting the cold wrap around you without fear. The Neanderthals lead on, carrying their ember bundle like a secret. You follow, ready to witness the next quiet miracle of winter survival. You walk with the group until the faint glow of the last fire fades behind you, swallowed by the wide blue hush of winter. The sky hangs low, a slow-moving blanket of pale clouds. The cold drifts around you in quiet spirals, brushing your cheeks like a cautious observer. Ahead, the Neanderthals shift their pace. Their steps become slower, softer, more deliberate. You sense that the next lesson is not about warmth or shelter, but about something equally essential: how to find food in a world that seems determined to hide it. The landscape opens into a long, white corridor of snow pressed between rolling ridges. Every sound feels muted. You listen closely, letting your senses stretch as far as the cold will allow. At first you hear nothing but your own soft breathing. Then you notice tiny patterns in the snow, little indents, paired dots, drag marks, a scattered trail of seeds. The Neanderthals notice all these things instantly, as if the ground is reading aloud and they understand every syllable. One of the adults kneels beside a line of fresh footprints. They are dainty and close together. You lean in to look. The edges are crisp, the centers untouched by wind. A small creature passed through not long ago. The Neanderthals exchange glances, and you sense a spark of recognition. This is the kind of sign that could lead the group to precious meat in a season when plants hide beneath layers of ice. Researchers frequently highlight the fact that Neanderthals hunted both large and small game, adjusting their strategies depending on what the land offered. Seeing it unfold in front of you feels strangely satisfying. The group spreads out, fanning across the narrow valley with silent coordination. Their movement is low and steady, like shadows shifting across snow. You follow one of the hunters as they glide toward a cluster of frost-covered shrubs. The crisp scent of winter air fills your lungs. Every step sinks softly into the powder. You notice how the hunter tests the ground before committing weight, avoiding crunches that might alert prey. This level of control feels almost artistic. A faint rustle ahead pricks your ears. The hunter freezes. You freeze too, breath held. The shrubs quiver again. You catch a glimpse of movement through tangled branches. A snow hare. Its fur blends so perfectly with the landscape that you wonder how anyone ever spots such a creature. Some people like to joke that ancient hunters must have developed snow vision. Maybe it is not literal, but imagining it adds a playful touch to the moment. Perhaps through long practice they truly became more sensitive to subtle shifts in white on white. The hunter raises their arm, slowly, slowly, giving the hare no reason to flee. They hold a short spear tipped with flint. The spearhead glints faintly. You sense the tension that wraps the moment like a thin film. You can almost hear the hunter's heartbeat. The hare shifts again, nibbling at something buried under snow. Then the hunter moves. The throw is quick but controlled, cutting the air with a whip-like sound. The spear lands true. The hare falls silently. The rest of the group gathers, their faces calm. There is no cheering, no excitement, only a quiet awareness that this small success could nourish the group for another day. As they lift the hare, you notice the thick fur and stout build. You picture how valuable its hide will be. You imagine the broth simmering later, warming cold stomachs. One of the group members traces the hare's path backward, studying where it came from. Small prey move along hidden highways beneath snow, and learning those routes is part of survival. You walk with them as they continue their tracking. The land reveals more signs. A faint depression where a hoof pressed through sleet. A tuft of fur snagged on a thorn bush. A scatter of frozen droppings that sparkle faintly in the low light. You watch as the hunters touch each clue with the back of their fingers, feeling the temperature and moisture. You marvel at how thoroughly they read this quiet world. A long ridge ahead casts a blue shadow across the snow. As the group approaches it, one of the hunters kneels once more, pressing their ear to the ground. You tilt your head, curious. Some people believe that skilled hunters can hear distant movements through vibrations in the earth. It is an unusual idea, but imagining it in this silent landscape makes the moment feel almost magical. Maybe they were not literally listening for footsteps, but learning to sense subtle changes in the environment. They climb the ridge. The view from the top stretches far. Snow plains ripple outward like frozen waves, and far in the distance you see them, dark shapes moving slowly in the pale light. Large animals. You squint, broad backs, massive shoulders, large heads lowered as they dig through snow for hidden grasses. A small herd of bison-like creatures, thick fur swaying in the wind. Your breath catches. This is what the hunters have been hoping for. The group crouches low, studying the herd. They watch for patterns, which animals lag behind, which ones appear injured, how the wind moves, how the snow shifts under hooves. Specialists often note that Neanderthals hunted large mammals using cooperative strategies. Seeing it now, you understand how much patience such hunts must have required. The hunters murmur quietly, planning. But then the wind changes. A sudden gust sweeps down the ridge and carries your scent toward the herd. The animals stiffen, heads rise, ears flick. Snow scatters in all directions as they move away, slipping into distant whiteness. You feel the disappointment settle over your shoulders too. It is a reminder that winter gives nothing easily. The group does not seem frustrated. They simply watch the herd fade, accepting the land's decision. You realize how flexible their hunting strategies needed to be. Some researchers discuss whether Neanderthals pursued large prey mainly through ambush, or whether they sometimes used endurance to follow injured animals for long distances. The debate adds texture to this scene. You imagine both possibilities. Either way, you see resilience in the way the group adjusts their plans without complaint. They descend the ridge again, returning to the valley floor. Their movements remain efficient but unhurried. The hare they caught earlier becomes a small but meaningful prize. The hunters check the snow once more, searching for any new signs. They seem to know that winter hunting is not just about chasing animals. It is about listening to the world and cooperating with it. As you walk with them, you notice the light shifting. Afternoon is sliding toward evening, washing the snow in a muted pink glow. The air grows sharper, edging toward night's coldness. The group prepares to head back toward a sheltered area. You follow closely, the cold whispering along your collar. The wind sighs across the plain, carrying the quiet sounds of distant animals, cracking ice, and your own steady footsteps. You realize that hunting here is more than gathering food. It is a slow and practiced conversation with the land itself. Every trace you notice today, every breath of wind, every rustle of shrubs becomes part of a puzzle that Neanderthals solved countless times, across countless winters. As the group moves on, their silhouettes blur softly in the fading light. You keep pace with them, carrying the rhythm of their hunt inside you, ready for whatever the next winter lesson reveals. The cold deepens as you follow the group across a slope where the wind curls along the ground like a restless animal searching for weakness. You pull your imagined cloak a little closer, even though you know it is only a picture in your mind. The Neanderthals, though, seem unbothered. Their hides shift with each step, rustling softly. You begin to notice how the clothing itself becomes part of their quiet mastery of winter. They pause near a cluster of low pines, branches frosted with a thin coat of sparkling ice. One of the adults kneels and adjusts the wrapping around their wrists. You crouch nearby, eyes narrowing as you study the layers. It is not a single piece of hide, but multiple strips, softened and shaped to overlap precisely. This kind of layered arrangement keeps wind from slipping through. Historians often point out that Neanderthals wore tailored garments with sewn seams, not just draped skins. Seeing the detailed work up close makes the idea feel more alive. As you observe them, your fingers brush over a patch of fur lining the inner layer of a hide. It feels surprisingly soft. You imagine how long it must take to scrape, stretch, and dry each pelt. There is a faint smell of smoked leather and animal fat, carrying a warmth of its own. You watch one of the older members of the group rub a mixture of rendered fat onto a seam, waterproofing it so snow will bead instead of soaking in. The smell is rich and earthy, spreading gently into the cold air. A curious notion drifts into your memory. You once heard that some prehistoric groups occasionally used tiny animal teeth stitched along the hems of clothing to help weigh down the fabric in heavy winds. Maybe it was practical, maybe decorative, maybe both. Imagining it now, you picture a young Neanderthal running their fingers proudly along a row of tiny gleaming teeth sewn into their hood. The group begins to prepare a new set of garments. One hunter drapes a fresh hide across a flat stone and begins to scrape it with a flint tool. The scraping sound is steady, almost like someone sharpening a knife in a quiet kitchen. You watch fibers loosen and drift away like brown snowflakes. Another member punctures small holes with a pointed bone awl, while a third threads sinew through each opening. The movements are practiced, sure, almost rhythmic. Their cooperation feels effortless. You lean closer, fascinated. The sinew thread glistens faintly in the cold light. It stretches slightly when pulled tight, helping the seam seal securely. You run your fingertips across a finished seam and feel its neatness. There is a functional beauty to it. Every line, every knot, every tuck protects someone from the claws of winter. While you study the garment, you remember that researchers frequently highlight that Neanderthals had barrel chests and strong limbs, partially shaped by cold climate demands. Clothes like these worked with that anatomy. They did not just wrap the body, they hugged it, preserving warmth in the thickest parts. In the hollow between neck and shoulder, you see an extra layer tucked carefully, trapping precious heat. A younger member of the group approaches you, offering a piece of hide for inspection. You lift it, surprised by how dense the winter fur feels. It is heavier than you expected. The child watches your reaction with a small spark of curiosity. You notice how their own coat fits tightly around the wrists and ankles. Those are the points where heat escapes quickest in a harsh landscape, and their clothing design reflects that understanding perfectly. Ahead, two hunters gather long slivers of bone. They begin shaping them into smooth needles. You watch the bone dust drift like pale powder in the air. The sound of scraping tools creates a soft staccato rhythm. You imagine how valuable a needle must have been. It is easy to picture someone guarding their favorite one carefully, tucking it into a small pouch lined with fur. A breeze sweeps through the pines, shaking loose tiny shards of ice that glitter as they fall. The Neanderthals pause, looking upward, sensing the change. You realize how deeply connected they are to the world around them. While you watch, one hunter tightens the fur hood around their face. The lining hugs their cheeks, leaving only the eyes exposed. The hood is edged with longer fur, creating a warm pocket of air around the face. You try to imagine the feeling. The cold becomes muted, like being tucked inside a soft cave. Nearby, another adult begins stitching together a set of leggings. They hold the hide against their leg to check the length. The hide folds naturally along the contours, and they trim the edges with a sharp flake. You watch how they secure the bottom with a tight wrap made from twisted sinew, preventing snow from slipping in. Everything about this clothing seems designed with intimate knowledge of how cold behaves. Later, the group moves toward a fallen log. They gather around it, checking a bundle of stored hides left there earlier. Some are newly tanned, others are older, patched repeatedly. You sense stories in those patches. Maybe a tear caused by thorns, maybe a scrape from crawling into a tight shelter, maybe a seam that needed strengthening after too many days in icy rain. Each repair shows resourcefulness. A lively debate in modern anthropology comes to mind as you observe all this. Some specialists believe Neanderthals may have used decorative elements even in winter gear, not just for function but for identity, status, or group belonging. Others think their clothing remained mostly plain. Imagining both possibilities, you glance around and notice one hunter wearing a hood with a row of darker fur along the edge. Decoration or practicality? Hard to say. But the hint of individuality makes the scene glow a little brighter. The Neanderthals begin dressing for a long trek. You watch them slip into layer after layer. Fur tunics first, then wrapped leggings, then thick cloaks reinforced at the seams. You listen to the soft rustling as hides brush against each other. A heavy calm settles over the group as everyone prepares. Clothing, in this moment, feels less like fabric and more like a shield crafted from knowledge accumulated across centuries. You adjust your imagined layers too, feeling the weight of fur on your shoulders, the gentle pressure of tightened sinew around your wrists. The world looks different when you are wrapped so thoroughly. The cold feels quieter, less invasive. You feel more rooted, more prepared. The group begins to move again, and you walk among them, hearing their coats creak slightly with every step. The garments shift like second skins, designed to keep warmth where it matters most. You breathe in slowly, thinking about how many winters were endured inside layers like these. How many storms, how many nights huddled by fire while snow howled outside like a hungry creature. The sky above gradually dims as clouds roll in thicker than before. The wind picks up grains of snow and tosses them lightly against your face. But now the cold feels less threatening. You feel shielded, wrapped in ancient wisdom crafted from needle, sinew, and hide. As the group moves onward, you let yourself sink deeper into the rhythm of their steps. Each stride carries you closer to understanding how clothing was not just attire for Neanderthals. It was survival shaped with hands that knew winter intimately. You follow the group into a stretch of land where the snow begins to behave differently. It no longer settles in smooth curtains but forms ripples, ridges, and strange folds that make the ground look like frozen silk. You place your foot carefully, testing how the surface shifts. The Neanderthals ahead of you seem to glide across it with practiced ease, and you soon understand why. Reading snow is its own art, a quiet language carved by wind, temperature, and time. One of the hunters raises a hand, signaling everyone to slow down. You pause beside a drift shaped like a long, curved crest. It looks delicate, but when you tap it gently with your knuckles, it feels solid, almost glassy. A trusted observation in cold climate research is that different snow layers form under different weather patterns, and Neanderthals likely understood those patterns instinctively. Standing here, you feel that truth echo in the stillness. The hunter kneels, running thick fingers along the drift's surface. The snow makes a faint, squeaking sound beneath their touch. You listen closely. That squeak tells them something. Dry snow, cold snow, stable snow. A small smile tugs at the corner of your mind as you recall a fun anecdote that early winter travelers sometimes claimed they could judge temperature by the sound of their footsteps on snow. Imagining Neanderthals doing the same makes the moment feel vivid, almost tender. You crouch beside the hunter and watch as they lift a handful of snow. The top layer crumbles easily, but the layer beneath it holds together like delicate clay. Beneath that, icy grains shimmer like crushed crystal. The hunter nods lightly, reading the layers as if flipping through a diary written by last night's storm. You inhale slowly, sensing the crisp scent of untouched cold, sharp and clean with a hint of pine drifting from nearby trees. The group begins to move again, but now you pay closer attention to the ground. You notice how they always avoid certain patches where the snow forms convex bulges. Those areas make a hollow, airy sound when pressed. They hide weakness under beauty. The hunters skirt around them without hesitation. Their feet find the flatter, denser places where snow compacts more reliably. The wind shifts direction. Snow dust sails through the air in glittering spirals. You tilt your head, watching how the drift edges grow sharper on one side and softer on the other. One of the adults points to the sharper edge and traces a line with a finger. The message becomes clear. The wind carved it recently. That means the snow underneath may still be loose. You admire the hunter's ability to read this so quickly. It feels like watching someone interpret music you cannot hear. As you continue walking, you spot a pattern of narrow trenches carved into a slope. You run a finger across one and feel it hood your fingertip like a tiny doorway. It dawns on you that some animal passed here earlier, its belly brushing the snow. Perhaps a fox, perhaps a wolverine. The group notices too. They pause, examining the indentations, quietly discussing what might have caused them. There is a hushed respect in the way they read these signs. Every detail can shape their next move. A thought comes to you. Some scholars propose that Neanderthals had a keen ability to judge the thickness of ice or snow just by the tension underfoot, almost like an internal scale that measures weight and sound. Others argue that their skill came entirely from constant experience and attentive observation. Imagining both views, you let the idea swirl around like a snowflake caught in a slow breeze. The uncertainty feels comforting, reminding you that ancient people often lived in spaces where intuition and knowledge intertwined. Ahead, the group approaches a slope where the snow is layered in distinct stripes. The top stripe is pure white, the next slightly grey, and the next almost translucent. It looks like a stack of winter memories. One of the hunters taps the middle stripe with the end of their spear. A muffled thud responds. No collapse. Good stability. You feel your shoulders ease as if you are learning these instincts too. Nearby, a child kneels and scoops up a handful of snow, letting it trickle between their fingers. The snowflakes catch the faint light and glow like tiny stars. The child giggles softly, then presses the snow into a firm ball. You sense the warmth of that gesture in the icy air. Snow, after all, is not just danger or terrain. It is also a material to play with, to shape, to learn from. In your imagination, you form a small snowball too, feeling the cold bite your palms gently. The Neanderthals then gather around a strange structure in the snow. It is a mound formed from layers hardened by wind. The mound looks safe from a distance, but as one hunter steps onto it, the snow emits a low, drum-like vibration. Not quite a crack, not quite a collapse, something in between. Everyone steps back. You feel a pulse of awareness ripple across the group. You place your ear close to the mound, hearing faint groans inside the snowpack. The world here has a voice if you listen. You wonder briefly if ancient hunters sometimes pressed their ears to the ground just like this. Maybe they did. Maybe they relied on sound, vibration, and instinct woven together so tightly that the land itself became a teacher. Wind brushes your hair again, carrying flecks of snow that melt instantly on your skin. You watch them disappear, leaving little cold kisses in their wake. The group moves on, flowing around the mound like water. You follow, stepping carefully along their path. The terrain soon softens. Snow thickens in gentle waves across flat ground. The Neanderthals take advantage of this by moving in a diagonal line, each person stepping in the footprints of the one ahead. This conserves energy, reduces noise, and keeps the snow compacted for those behind. You match their steps, feeling gratitude for this shared path. Even in a story, you feel safer walking this way. As the group approaches a frozen stream, the snow changes texture again. It becomes icy, slick, and thin. The hunters take turns testing it. One taps with a stone. It echoes sharply. Another presses their heel lightly. The ice holds. A third tosses a small rock. The surface vibrates but does not crack. After a few moments, the group crosses in a single file, balancing on patches where snow has fused to the ice like fragile stepping stones. Your pulse quickens as you follow, but you make it across without slipping. On the far side, you feel something new in the air, maybe confidence, maybe a sense of belonging. You have walked across drifting plains, tested the layers of winter, and learned to read the frozen ground with quiet curiosity. The Neanderthals look satisfied too, as if this snowy terrain has shared its secrets with all of you. As the light dims into soft evening blue, the group presses onward with steady feet. The snow surrounding you whispers subtly under each step. You listen to those whispers, letting them settle warmly in your imagination. You breathe deep, allowing the quiet rhythm of winter knowledge to carry you gently onward. You continue walking with the group until the wind softens and the land flattens into a quiet hollow shielded by low hills. The Neanderthals slow down, their steps settling into a gentle rhythm. You feel something shift among them, not in words but in body language. Shoulders draw closer, heads tilt slightly inward. The distance between individuals shrinks almost without thought. You realize you are about to witness one of the simplest and most powerful winter strategies, staying warm together, body to body, breath to breath. The air is growing colder by the minute. Night approaches with the blue tint of deep winter settling over everything. You sense how precious warmth becomes at this hour. One of the adults gestures for the group to gather near a shallow indentation in the ground. Snow has been cleared there earlier, leaving a smooth area of earth that still holds a faint trace of warmth from the day. You take a seat with them, feeling the cool ground through your layers, and watch how everyone instinctively organizes themselves. The older members sit first, forming a broad semicircle. Younger adults slide in beside them. Children settle at the center, cushioned by soft hides and warm bodies. It is a simple formation but highly effective. Many researchers agree that close physical proximity was essential for winter nights, helping reduce heat loss when temperatures plunged. Seeing it recreated here feels both tender and practical. As the last few hunters settle, one of them pulls a thick hide across the group, draping it so that it covers several shoulders at once. The hide is heavy and still smells faintly smoky from earlier tanning. You sink under its weight, feeling a pocket of warm air forming between you and the person beside you. It is astonishing how quickly shared warmth accumulates. Breath mingles, shoulders touch, knees press lightly together. The cold that once bit at your bones now feels muted, softened by the group's combined heat. A faint noise catches your attention. A quiet hum slips from an elder seated near the center. It is not a song, not exactly, but more like a steady vibration felt through the chest. The children lean closer, heads resting against warm arms. You hear the soft hitch of their sleepy breathing. While the hum continues, you remember reading that some cold-adapted communities in early human history may have used rhythmic sounds or gentle murmurs to soothe children during long winter nights. The idea fits here perfectly. You let the sound wash over you with surprising comfort. Your eyes adjust to the dimming light, and you begin to appreciate the subtleties of the gathering. The soft warmth along your side, the smell of fur, the quiet crackle of frost settling on nearby shrubs, the little sighs as people shift to find the warmest positions. Close contact feels more intimate than any fire. This is warmth built from trust, shared willingly, and received without hesitation. Someone beside you reaches out to adjust the hide draped across the group. Their fingers brush against your forearm briefly, and the touch carries a gentle heat that spreads pleasantly along your skin. You look down and see that they have tucked the edge of the hide more securely between your legs and theirs, sealing out the cold. This kind of cooperation was not optional for Neanderthals. It was survival shaped into small acts repeated countless times. A memory surfaces. In many studies, experts highlight that Neanderthal groups were often small, tightly bonded units where cooperation was central to everyday life. Warmth sharing like this would have strengthened those bonds even further. Feeling it yourself now, you understand how physical closeness could also reinforce emotional closeness, weaving the group into something resilient and unified. Nearby, a young hunter checks a warm stone wrapped in bark and hide. It had been heated earlier near a fire. Now it is placed gently at the core of the group to radiate heat outward. You touch the stone's surface under the wrapping and feel a steady glow against your palm. It is not hot, just pleasantly warm. The kind of warmth that makes you exhale slowly, allowing tension to melt from your legs. You lean back, resting your shoulders against the broad back of the hunter behind you. They shift only slightly to make room, accepting your weight as naturally as snow accepts falling flakes. The hide above you rustles softly as someone adjusts their position. A child murmurs sleepily. The elder's hum fades into a low, slow breath. For a moment, silence stretches like a blanket across the group. The sky above deepens into a richer shade of blue. Stars begin to pierce through the stillness, each one shimmering coldly. You notice the sharp scent of night air, carrying hints of frozen soil and distant pine. It feels cleaner now, somehow gentler. Protected by the group's shared heat, you find yourself savoring the contrast between cold air and warm bodies. A playful detail comes to mind. Some storytellers imagine that in the deepest winters, Neanderthals might have occasionally used heated animal bladders filled with warm liquid as makeshift hot water packs. Whether or not that ever truly happened is uncertain, but picturing it now gives the scene a small spark of humor. You can almost imagine someone proudly presenting a warm pouch like a treasured possession, offering it to the coldest member of the group. Later, another adult reaches into a small pouch and brings out a tuft of dried herbs. They crumble it between their palms, releasing a soft fragrance that drifts through the air like a whisper. It smells faintly woody, with a hint of sweetness. The aroma blends with the warm press of bodies, creating a sense of cozy calm. Some researchers suggest that ancient peoples sometimes used aromatic plants for relaxation or mild antiseptic qualities. The detail fits nicely into the atmosphere settling around you. You feel your eyelids grow heavier as the shared warmth lulls you into a dreamy haze. The snow outside the hide covering shifts with a quiet hiss as wind brushes past. Inside the small cocoon of bodies, everything remains still, steady, and safe. It strikes you how often this scene must have played out across the long history of Neanderthals, night after night, storm after storm. Hundreds of thousands of winters spent learning that survival was as much about togetherness as it was about fire or hunting skills. As you lean into the group, feeling the slow rise and fall of breathing around you, you sense a deep calm settling inside your chest. Warmth shared becomes warmth multiplied. You let that truth sink in gently. The night grows darker. The silence grows deeper. You are held within the ancient rhythm of bodies gathered against the cold, ready to drift forward into the next phase of winter wisdom when dawn finally returns. You rise with the group at first light, still feeling the gentle imprint of shared warmth along your arms and back. The cold nips at your skin again, lively now, after being pushed away through the night. A pale morning glow stretches across the snowy land. You watch frost glint along every surface, turning the world into a quiet sculpture of ice. The Neanderthals begin to move with purpose. Today, they are guiding you toward one of their most reliable shelters, the steady, patient warmth of the earth itself. As you walk, low hills soften the wind, and the ground grows rockier. You notice how the snow gathers differently here, thinning in some places and piling thickly in others. Soon the land splits open in a narrow seam, a dark line cutting across the pale slope. It looks like the earth exhaled and left a mouth wide enough for someone to slip inside. The group approaches this opening with quiet familiarity. You feel a strange tug, as if the land itself is calling you closer. The entrance is low and shadowed. Icicles fringe the edges like frozen fangs. When you duck your head and step inside, the sound of the outside world fades instantly. The wind hushes. The cold softens. A new smell greets you: damp stone, ancient dust, and a faint trace of minerals carried through the air. This small underground space is not dramatic or vast. It is simply steady, sheltered, and warmer than the open world. Researchers often point out that caves and rock shelters offered Neanderthals reliable protection from winter storms. Stepping into one now, you feel that reliability settle into your bones. The floor crunches softly beneath your feet. Thin layers of frost have gathered near the entrance, but as you move deeper, the ground becomes drier, firmer. The warmth is subtle, not hot, but present. You feel it in the air brushing your cheeks. It is a relief after the biting wind outside. One of the hunters places a hand on the rock wall and nods gently, as if greeting an old friend. The child from earlier runs fingers along the stone too, smiling at the smoothness. As your eyes adjust to the dim light, you see faint scratch marks along the walls, likely made by animals that used this shelter long before the group found it. You also notice places where soot clings to the stone ceiling. Thin, delicate stains. Not a raging inferno's reminder, but the gentle trace of many small fires lit in winters past. You can almost hear the voices that once filled this cavern, layered across generations like quiet echoes. You settle onto a flat section of rock beside the others. Someone spreads thick hides across the ground, smoothing them carefully with broad palms. The hides absorb the chill from the rock almost instantly. When you sit down, your hips sink into a warmth that grows slowly but steadily. It feels grounding, secure, comfortably enclosed. A small fact flickers in your memory. Experts frequently note that underground shelters maintain more stable temperatures compared to the surface. Even today, caves tend to hover around moderate levels regardless of weather. Imagining Neanderthals discovering this naturally gives the moment a deeper sense of wisdom. Nearby, two hunters begin gathering dry twigs and bark from a small stash hidden near the cave wall. They had placed it there earlier, safe from snow and wind. The bark crumbles in their hands, releasing the earthy scent of long-cured wood. A spark catches, then another, until a small fire flickers to life. The flames reflect orange on the cave walls, turning shadows into soft, swaying patterns. The air warms almost immediately, not dramatically, just enough to feel like a blanket being gently draped across your shoulders. A faint breeze travels through the cave from a small crack in the ceiling. It pulls the smoke upward, carrying it along the natural chimney. The elegant simplicity of this feels almost magical. One little shift of stone, one little pathway for air, and the cave becomes a comfortable winter refuge. You marvel at how often Neanderthals must have relied on such features without ever knowing the science behind them. They simply paid attention, and paying attention saved lives. While the fire grows, you hear a soft dripping sound deeper in the cave, a slow rhythmic tap, 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 meltwater from a hidden fissure. The group listens for a moment, gauging whether the water is safe to collect. A hunter lights a small torch and walks toward the sound. You follow, stepping carefully. The flame casts a warm orange glow on the rock, revealing patterns worn over countless seasons. In an alcove, the hunter dips fingers into a tiny pool where droplets gather. They taste the water, testing for bitterness or contaminants. Satisfied, they nod. You cup your hands and taste it too. Cold, pure and sharper than any water you have had before. There is something calming about drinking from the earth itself. You walk back to the central chamber, and the group is already settling into tasks. One person scrapes a hide to soften it further. Another arranges food for preparation. A child stacks small stones near the fire, watching how their surfaces warm and deepen in color. The cave becomes a workshop, a sanctuary, and a gathering spot all at once. A soft thought nudges at your mind. Some specialists like to imagine that certain caves, especially those revisited over generations, might have held special meaning for Neanderthals beyond simple shelter. Maybe memory accumulated in these spaces. Maybe stories grew here. Maybe the firelight bouncing off the walls reminded them of something comforting. You look around the cave and feel that possibility settling gently into the shadows. The group begins arranging a resting area near the back, where the warmth from the fire spreads evenly. They place hides on the ground, forming a large nest. You run your palm along the surface. It is thick and soft, smelling faintly of smoke and sun-dried fibers. You feel the natural insulation beneath you, and imagine long winter nights spent curled here, listening to distant wind outside, safe within stone walls. A child picks up a small pebble and taps it gently on another, creating a crisp echo. You listen to the sound bounce around the cave, playful and bright. The echo almost seems like the cave speaking back. The child giggles. You smile, feeling the warmth of the moment, both literal and emotional. Later, one of the hunters kneels near the fire and begins to shape a tool with deliberate care. The tapping sound of flint shaping bone creates a steady rhythm. It blends with the crackle of dry twigs, the drip of water, the occasional sigh from wind sneaking through the cracks. Everything merges into a subtle winter lullaby. The warmth in the cave deepens. You breathe slowly, feeling your chest rise and fall in peaceful cadence. Stone walls hold the heat, turning the space into a gentle cradle. You imagine countless nights like this across ancient time, families huddled together, stories whispered, food cooked slowly, cold winds raging outside while inside everything glowed with steady calm. A small breeze moves across your face as someone shifts the hide at the entrance. Daylight spills in briefly, pale and delicate. You watch snow drift past the opening, swirling in lazy spirals. But the chill outside no longer feels threatening, not from here, not from within the warm bones of the earth. As the fire flickers and shadows sway along the cave walls, you sink deeper into this shelter's quiet embrace. You feel the protective calm of stone surrounding you, holding you steady through the long winter ahead. You step out of the cave with the group once the morning brightens, feeling the cold press lightly against your newly warmed skin. The sun hangs low behind a thin curtain of clouds, casting a muted gold across the snow. The Neanderthals move with calm confidence, their breath curling in delicate ribbons. Soon, you notice something different about the way they walk. Several of them are carrying tools, and each piece seems shaped not only by human hands but by the cold itself. As you follow them along a narrow ridge, a rhythmic clinking begins to rise above the sound of crunching snow. Metal does not exist in this ancient world, yet the tools in their hands sing nonetheless. Flint edges meet bone handles. Stone scrapers hang from leather cords. Thick wooden shafts are tipped with points shaped through countless winters of trial. A widely accepted observation among archaeologists is that Neanderthal tools were remarkably efficient, crafted with striking precision despite the absence of metal. Seeing them now through your imagination, you feel a growing respect for that subtle mastery. One of the hunters unslings a heavy flint hand axe and holds it up so the light catches the edge. It glimmers faintly, revealing the many small flake scars that form its surface. You take a closer look and run your fingers lightly along the stone. The cold instantly bites into your skin through the smooth ridges. You sense how important texture must have been. A smooth edge would slip. A ridged one would grip. Everything about the tool reflects thoughtful attention. A curious detail nudges its way into your mind. Some enthusiasts have suggested that Neanderthals might have modified their tools slightly depending on the season, creating points that performed better in cold environments or scraping edges shaped for frozen hides. Whether or not that idea is perfectly accurate, it adds a captivating layer to the way you imagine them working. You picture them inspecting tools at the start of each winter, testing how each piece handles the brittle crust of snow or the stiffness of frozen animal skin. Ahead, the group reaches a flat area shielded by a cluster of boulders. This becomes their workspace for the moment. They settle into quiet positions, each person handling a different tool. One adult sits near you and begins to chip a flint core with brisk, confident taps. The sound echoes across the cold air like tiny bells. You watch flakes fly in sharp, glinting arcs. Every flake reveals a new surface. Every new surface becomes another step toward a perfect edge. Your attention drifts to the hunter beside them, who is shaping a bone handle. Their movements are slower, more deliberate. Bone dust gathers on the hide spread across their lap. You lean in and see that the bone is already polished smooth through long use. It feels warm from their hands. A new flint blade will soon be lashed to it with sinew, creating a tool that can cut through both hide and frozen meat. While you observe, you remember a lively debate among researchers about how Neanderthals hafted their tools. Some argue they used plant resins heated carefully to glue stone to wood or bone, while others propose that sinew bindings did most of the heavy lifting. Imagining either method, you can almost smell the faint sweetness of warmed resin, or hear the tightening creak of drying sinew as it pulls snug around the tool. A faint breeze sweeps across the open space, carrying with it the crisp scent of winter pine and the dry aroma of flint dust. You inhale and feel tiny particles prickle your nose. The cold keeps everything sharp. Your senses feel almost heightened, tuned to the soft sequence of sounds: the tap of stone, the scrape of bone, the rustle of fur, the muffled thud of a hunter shifting position. One of the younger Neanderthals begins working on a smaller project. They kneel near a flat rock and start shaping a delicate bone awl. The tip glints pearly white. You watch their fingers as they rotate the bone, carving it gradually into a point. The precision is startling. This awl will soon be used to pierce leather or anchor lashes on a spearhead. You admire how even the smallest tool receives full attention. A child wanders over, fascinated by the process. They sit beside the young toolmaker, watching with wide eyes. The two share a quiet smile. The presence of the child reminds you that these skills were passed down generation by generation, not through books or diagrams, but through shared moments just like this. Knowledge flowed through hands, watching eyes, and the soft murmurs that fill long winter days. You step closer to another hunter who is sharpening a scraper. The stone tool is small, but its edge is fierce. They draw it across a hide stretched on the ground. The scraping noise creates a rhythmic whisper, like snow brushing against bark. The hide softens under their touch. You stroke the newly scraped section and feel how pliable it has become. This softness will help in making warm clothing or comfortable bedding. Further along the workspace, a hunter tests a spear. They brace the shaft against the ground and push their weight into it. The wood creaks but holds strong. You run your hand down its length and feel small ridges where the bark was once stripped away. The balance is impressive. Even you, untrained, Sense how the tool's weight is distributed just right for throwing or thrusting. You realize how much experience must have gone into shaping something so deceptively simple. The group continues working for a while, each person locked into a quiet flow. The cold seems to sit respectfully at the edge of the workspace, unable to intrude on this purposeful concentration. Your breath mixes with the soft puffs rising from the hunters, forming clouds that drift upward like tiny signals. Eventually, the flint worker sets aside a newly shaped scraper and gestures for you to take it. You lift it carefully, feeling the surprising heaviness. The tool fits naturally into your palm, as though shaped for your hand alone. The edge gleams faintly. For a moment you imagine using it to slice through thick hide or shave wood. Holding it brings you closer to understanding how tools were not just objects but extensions of the body, shaped for survival and shaped by the environment. You hand the scraper back and notice the group beginning to gather their tools. The workspace clears quickly. Tools are tucked back into leather slings, bone awls into pouches, shaped flint into small woven bags. Every piece has its place. Nothing is left behind. Winter does not allow waste. As everyone rises, the air settles into a hush once more. The land stretches out before you, cold and open, but now you see it differently. You understand that surviving here requires more than strength or warmth. It requires craftsmanship, precision, and the calm patience to shape tools that will not fail when the cold presses hardest. The Neanderthals begin walking again, their toolkits clinking softly like distant chimes. You follow, your footsteps falling into their rhythm, ready to see how these winter-forged tools will serve them in the next challenge the frozen world offers. You keep close behind the group as the land opens into a wide valley where the wind moves in long, sweeping currents. The cold feels deeper here, but not harsher. It has a rhythm, almost like the quiet breath of a giant sleeping beneath the snow. The Neanderthals tilt their heads slightly, listening to distant sounds. You follow their gaze and notice faint shapes on the horizon, dark bodies, slow movement. The great herds are passing. The group quickens its pace, but not with urgency. They move with steady intention, as if aligning themselves with something older than language. Soon you crest a gentle rise and see them clearly. A vast herd of woolly beasts lumbering across the plains, their heavy fur rippling like thick grass in the wind. Massive shoulders, curved horns, warm breaths rising in pale clouds. The sight stops you for a moment, catching your breath in your throat. A widely accepted observation in prehistoric studies is that large migrating animals played a central role in Neanderthal survival. Their movement signaled seasonal shifts and guided human groups across challenging landscapes. Watching it now feels like seeing the heartbeat of winter itself. The herd's slow progression carves a path through snow that others can follow. You sense how deeply this rhythm shaped ancient life. The Neanderthals do not rush toward the herd. Instead, they shadow it from a respectful distance. You walk with them, keeping your steps soft and quiet. The snow beneath the herd is stamped into long corridors of compacted white. You step onto one and feel the difference immediately. The ground becomes firm, almost springy, a welcome relief from deeper drifts. A small smile tugs at your lips as you realize how often ancient people must have used these ready-made paths to conserve precious energy. As you follow, you notice several hunters observing the herd's behavior. One watches how the animals dig through snow with broad heads. Another studies the rhythm of their stride. A third follows the tracks left by the youngest, whose smaller prints form a delicate chain along the main trail. The group does not hunt today. Instead, they learn. The herd reveals where grass lies beneath the snow, where warmer pockets of land may exist, and where predators might gather. This kind of attention transforms the herd into a guide. A small detail floats into your mind. Some researchers believe Neanderthals timed their movements around animal migrations with remarkable accuracy, possibly learning to anticipate when herds would shift valleys or cross particular water sources. Imagining that skill gives you a new appreciation for how closely these ancient humans observed the world. You watch now with fresh awareness, letting each hoof step and breath of steam teach you. Closer to the herd's flank, you hear a deep grumbling sound, followed by the rhythmic clack of horns knocking lightly against each other. Two males are testing dominance, not in full combat but in slow, heavy motions. Snow puffs outward as they push. The Neanderthals pause to observe. You sense how important it is to study signs of weakness or tension. A herd's internal dynamics can reveal opportunities or dangers long before they unfold. The wind carries the earthy scent of animals. It is warm, musky, and thick, cutting through the cold air like a promise of food, warmth, and survival. You inhale deeply, feeling the scent coil into your senses. It is strangely soothing, a reminder that life persists even in the harshest winters. One of the hunters kneels, pressing a hand to a patch of disturbed snow. You look closely and see that the snow here is shallow, as if the animals found something worth digging for. When you scrape aside the top layer with your glove, you reveal wilted grasses and half-frozen shoots. The hunter nods thoughtfully. Grass hidden beneath snow hints at warmer ground below the surface. That warmth can influence where the group might settle for the evening. A soft sound pulls your attention upward. Birds circling overhead. Their wings slice through the cold air. Scavengers. Their presence suggests that a carcass might lie somewhere within the herd's wake. The Neanderthals exchange quiet glances and adjust direction. Soon you find it. The remains of a young animal, half eaten by predators during the night. The meat is frozen, but portions are still usable. A hunter crouches to inspect it, checking for freshness, predators, and safety. After a moment, they carve away a portion to carry with them. Efficient, respectful, practical. This small moment sparks a memory of an academic discussion you once heard. Some specialists propose that Neanderthals may have occasionally scavenged when the opportunity presented itself, especially in the dead of winter when every calorie mattered. Others argue that they preferred fresh kills and used scavenging only rarely. No definitive answer exists, and imagining both approaches lets the scene feel richer. You sense how flexible survival needed to be. The herd begins to shift direction. Their movement is subtle at first, like a quiet ripple through the mass of bodies. The Neanderthals immediately sense the change. They adjust their path, following the animals along a curving stretch of land where the wind has carved shallower drifts. You step into their footprints and feel how easy the walking becomes. The herd is unknowingly smoothing your way. At one point, you come close enough to hear the soft snorts of a calf. The little creature stumbles clumsily over a patch of crusted ice. Its mother nudges it gently with her horn. The sound is surprisingly tender. You feel your chest warm slightly at the sight, even though the air around you remains icy. The Neanderthals watch too, and you sense a shared moment of empathy. Even in survival, there is room for quiet appreciation. You continue walking, letting the herd lead you into the deeper valley. The sky above grows brighter, reflecting off the animal's fur in waves of gold and ivory. The soundscape becomes richer. Steady crunching of snow under huge hooves, deep breathing, the occasional snort. It forms a rhythm that fills the cold space around you. After some time, the group slows. They are not following the herd indefinitely. They pause at a vantage point where they can see several trails branching outward from the main route. Here is where knowledge is passed along. Older hunters point toward one path, then another. They discuss which routes the herd might take in the coming days. You watch their gestures, their steady gazes. You feel the quiet science in their movements. The Neanderthals finally step away from the herd's path. As the animals drift farther into the valley, their shapes blur into a living tide of fur and breath. You stand still for a moment, watching them fade, feeling something ancient and serene settle into your bones. You realize that following the herd is not just about food. It is about reading the winter landscape, locating warmth, predicting storms, and moving with the world instead of against it. The cold touches your cheek again, reminding you that the journey continues. The group turns toward a new direction, carrying the lessons of the herd in their stride. You follow, stepping into their tracks, letting the rhythm of migration guide your thoughts as you press deeper into the frozen world. You follow the group as they leave the valley of migrating herds, stepping into a quieter stretch of land where the wind moves more gently and the snow settles in deep, soft blankets. The cold is steady but not biting. You sense a shift in the Neanderthals' behavior. Their steps grow purposeful again, not toward prey this time, but towards something equally vital for surviving the long frozen months, their hidden food caches. The sky hangs low with pale grey clouds. Light filters through them like the glow beneath frosted glass. You hear only the soft thud of your feet and the muted breaths of the group as they head toward a cluster of low boulders half buried in snow. One of the hunters gestures for silence, not out of fear, but out of habit. Approaching a cache is a moment for careful respect. Animals search for leftovers too, and caution keeps the stash safe. You watch as a hunter kneels beside a snowbank and brushes aside a thick layer of powder. Underneath, a patch of frost-covered earth reveals itself. They press their palm against the surface, testing the hardness. You crouch beside them, feeling how the ground here is colder than the air above, almost like a natural freezer. A commonly mentioned point in prehistoric studies is that Neanderthals likely stored food in cold environments to keep it from spoiling. Seeing this in your imagination adds a sense of realism to the moment. The hunter taps the ground lightly with a stone. A dull, hollow sound answers. You sense a small thrill ripple through the group. This is it, their reserve. A place where days of work were preserved for times when the land gives nothing easily. Another hunter joins in. Together they dig, not frantically but with calm confidence. Snow lifts in gentle puffs. Frost breaks into clumps. The cold air grows sharper around the opening, carrying with it the faint scent of frozen meat. Soon you see it, thick slabs of preserved animal flesh wrapped in hide. They look dark, solid and slightly shiny with ice crystals clinging to the edges. You touch the outer layer of one bundle. It is frozen completely, stiff as carved wood. The hide wrapping has become rigid, molded perfectly to its contents. This small treasure was harvested from a hunt days or weeks earlier. The group stored it here where cold and snow work like silent helpers, protecting their precious food. A curious memory rises in your thoughts. Some researchers propose that early humans occasionally buried meat in snow pits, or even left it under heavy stones to deter scavengers. Others believe that meat hung in cold winds could dry naturally into something like ancient jerky. Imagining both, you look around the cold landscape and can easily picture Neanderthals testing multiple methods depending on the season. Two hunters lift a bundle carefully, holding it between them. When they unwrap a small corner, you hear the faint crackle of frozen fibers breaking apart. The meat inside still looks rich and dense, marbled with fat that glistens faintly in the dim light. A hunter slices off a small piece with a stone knife, inspecting it closely. Satisfied, they wrap it again tightly and tuck it into a hide bag above their shoulder. Nearby, another hunter digs in a separate area and reveals a different cache. This one holds not meat but a stash of bones cracked earlier to extract marrow. The marrow has frozen into pale yellow clumps on the inside walls of the bones. When you lift one, it feels smooth and icy in your hand. Even frozen marrow is rich in calories, a small but powerful resource for winter journeys. The wind lifts a few flakes of snow, swirling them lazily around you. One flake lands on your wrist and melts, leaving a tiny cold pinprick against your skin. You watch as the child from the group digs excitedly in a shallow drift and uncovers a little basket made of twisted roots. Inside it are dried berries, shriveled and dark but still pungent with faint aroma. The child sniffs them curiously. You smile at the sight. Although berries are rare in winter, dried stores like this add flavor and nutrients to meals. One of the adults checks the basket, breaking apart a berry between their fingers. The skin cracks with a brittle snap. They nod in approval. Dried fruits survive harsh winters better than many might imagine. You picture the group gathering them in warmer seasons, threading them onto fibers, or storing them in woven pouches. As you watch, A new thought drifts across your mind. Some experts speculate that ancient people may have used underground pockets not only to store food, but also to keep it safe from animals. Others believe the practice may have varied region by region. Imagining the uncertain details, you feel how adaptable these people must have been. A distant howl suddenly pierces the silence. It is long, low, and carried by the wind. Wolves. The group instantly shifts, not in fear but in awareness. They know that fresh carcasses attract predators. They move quickly and efficiently now, covering the openings of their caches with compacted snow, then brushing the surface smooth so it blends seamlessly with the landscape. You kneel to help bury one of the sites, pushing handfuls of snow into place. The cold burns gently against your fingertips. When the cache is covered, you step back and see almost no sign it was ever disturbed. The snow lies in smooth folds again, hiding the food beneath perfectly. With their reserves secured and extra food collected, the group straightens. You see a quiet pride in their posture. Caches like these are the difference between hardship and endurance. They represent foresight, memory, and cooperation. You imagine how many winters were survived because someone thought ahead, storing away a little more than what was needed that day. The group begins to move again, carrying their newly retrieved provisions. The weight of the meat, bones, and berries creates a gentle sway in their steps. You feel the importance of these resources settle into the rhythm of your own breathing. Food stored is time earned. Time to rest. Time to heal. Time to survive. As you walk through the pale morning light, the sky begins to open slightly, revealing hints of soft gold. The cold remains, but it feels less oppressive now. The knowledge that food waits beneath the snow, frozen and safe, brings a quiet comfort. You sense how deeply this practice shaped Neanderthal life. Ahead, the group turns toward a nearby ridge. The path leads upward, and the wind grows sharper again. You lift your chin, stepping into the breeze, carrying with you the calm strength of knowing that even in the cruelest winter, they found a way to preserve life beneath layers of ice and silence. You follow the group as they climb a gentle rise, leaving the food caches hidden beneath pristine snow. The wind shifts direction, carrying with it a sharper scent, one that tingles faintly in your nostrils. It is the clean smell of frozen water. Ahead, the land dips into a shallow basin where pale ice stretches across the surface like a sheet of frosted glass. The Neanderthals slow down, their steps turning cautious. You feel the same instinct ripple through your muscles. This section of the world demands respect. Ice can be a loyal friend or a waiting trap. You step forward and hear the faintest crunch underfoot. The top layer of snow hides a thin crust of ice. When you press your boot lightly, the surface groans, releasing a muted vibration beneath your feet. One of the hunters stops you with a gentle hand gesture. They kneel, brushing away the snow to reveal the ice more clearly. Light glints off hairline fractures spreading like delicate spiderwebs. You feel a small shiver of apprehension, more from awareness than cold. A steady observation repeated by many researchers is that early humans had to judge ice conditions constantly. Crossing frozen ponds, rivers, or marshes could offer shortcuts or safer routes through deep snow, but only if the ice held. Watching Neanderthals evaluate the surface now, you realize how crucial this knowledge must have been. One hunter picks up a long stick and taps the ice in front of you. The sound is low and muted. Safe. They tap again, slightly farther away. This time, the sound rings sharper, thinner, a higher tone, less safe. You begin to distinguish the subtle music of frozen water. Solid ice sings with a deep note. Thin ice whispers with a nervous squeak. You listen closely, letting the tones settle into your memory like a quiet lesson. As you kneel beside them, a playful detail rises in your mind. Some outdoor enthusiasts today insist they can judge ice thickness just by its color. Deeper blue often means stronger ice, while cloudy white suggests weakness. Imagining Neanderthals using similar instincts makes the cold scene feel even more grounded. You glance at the ice now and notice the shift in colors. patches of translucent blue shimmer toward the center. Near the edges, cloudy white dominates where water froze unevenly. One of the younger Neanderthals inches forward on their belly, spreading their weight across the surface. You watch their movements with a mixture of tension and admiration. They slide slowly, testing the ice with palms and elbows. This technique, simple yet clever, reduces the risk of breaking through. You follow their line of sight and notice something promising. The ice appears smoother and thicker toward a narrow channel leading to the other side of the basin. The eldest hunter kneels at the edge and scoops up a chunk of ice broken from a corner. They sniff it, taste it briefly, and frown thoughtfully. You feel puzzled until you realize they are testing the water's salinity or freshness. Meltwater from certain springs freezes differently. Fresh water often forms more stable sheets than areas where minerals gather. It is subtle knowledge, passed down through countless winters. Nearby, a child picks up a crystal-clear piece of ice and holds it to the light. The fragment glows like a tiny prism, refracting pale rainbows onto the snow. You watch them turn it over and over, marveling in silent wonder. The moment feels almost magical, reminding you that winter carries beauty alongside danger. The hunters decide the safest path lies along the slightly higher ridge of ice to the left. You follow their lead. They move in a staggered line, spreading out just enough to minimize weight concentration. You mimic their steps, placing your feet exactly where theirs landed. The ice responds with low, steady thuds, promising. As you cross, a quiet memory from an academic debate drifts through your thoughts. Some experts argue that Neanderthals relied heavily on local knowledge when navigating frozen landscapes, while others suggest they used experimentation and pattern recognition. Imagining both approaches, you picture them learning from each crack, each slip, each successful crossing, wisdom carved by winter. Halfway across, the ice shifts beneath you with a soft, warning moan. You freeze instantly. The hunters freeze too. The sound is not a break, just a reminder of weight pressing into an uncertain world. One hunter moves slowly toward you, ensuring their steps spread pressure across a broader area. They gesture for you to crouch lower, reducing the force on the ice. You breathe slowly, letting your heartbeat settle. After a few tense seconds, the sound fades. You continue forward, slower now, calmer. Soon the ice becomes firmer under your feet. You feel the snow thin out as you reach the far bank. The ground rises slightly, pulling you away from the frozen basin. When your boots touch solid earth again, you let out a quiet sigh you did not realize you were holding. The Neanderthals share small nods of approval. They have crossed safely, with knowledge guiding every step. The group pauses to scan the landscape. From this vantage point, you can see more frozen channels stretching like pale ribbons across the terrain. Each one represents a choice: shortcut, danger, or opportunity. The hunters discuss the safest directions using gestures, pointing out spots where the ice looks darker, where snowdrifts hide thin layers, where the land rises gently, keeping the ground firmer. You crouch near a patch of fractured ice at the edge of the basin. It crunches softly when you lift a sliver. You notice how its underside glitters with tiny, trapped air bubbles. When held to the light, they shimmer like frozen sparks. You let the fragment fall, listening to it break into gentle shards. As the group moves onward, you follow the path that curves around rocky outcrops and shallow drifts. Behind you, the basin lies still, a frozen mirror reflecting the grey sky. You take one last glance at the ice and appreciate how something so fragile can also be a pathway, a resource, and a teacher. Your steps fall into rhythm with the Neanderthals again. The cold glides around your legs, the wind hums softly across the snow, and the memory of that frozen crossing settles into your mind as a new layer of winter wisdom. Ahead, the terrain changes once more, promising new challenges. You breathe in the crisp air and continue walking, ready for whatever the frozen world reveals next. You walk with the group until the land evens out into a broad, open stretch of snow, where silence hangs in the air like a soft curtain. The wind has calmed, and for the first time in days, the world feels almost motionless. The Neanderthals slow their pace, their steps lighten, their shoulders relax. A quiet understanding settles over the group. This is not a moment for marching or hunting. This is a moment to stay put, to conserve strength, to breathe with the winter instead of pushing against it. You feel the change immediately. The cold is still cold, the snow still deep, but the urgency has faded. The group spreads out slightly, searching for a good resting area. They choose a shallow depression in the snow, protected on one side by a cluster of frost-crusted shrubs. You step into the hollow and feel how the air moves differently here. The wind slips past above you, leaving the hollow itself calm. It is like crouching inside a small bowl of stillness. One of the older Neanderthals kneels and presses their hands into the snow, smoothing it into a flat surface. You watch the simple gesture and realize how purposeful everything becomes when surviving in cold landscapes. A flat surface means fewer drafts. A smooth layer means less melting beneath bodies. You kneel beside them and help pat the snow into a firm, even bed. The cold radiates gently through your gloves. A quiet fact comes to your mind. Many specialists emphasize that in harsh climates, conserving energy can be as important as finding food. The body burns precious calories simply by staying warm. Resting at the right moment could mean the difference between exhaustion and survival. As you sit down beside the group, you see that principle in action. One of the hunters unrolls a bundle of hides. The fur glistens faintly with frost along the outer edges. They lay the hides across the flattened snow, creating an insulating layer that immediately softens the cold beneath you. When you sit on it, your weight presses the fur into the snow, forming a cradle of warmth. The sensation is surprisingly comforting. Nearby, a young Neanderthal begins to dig a small pit no deeper than their hand. They scoop out loose snow and then pack firmer snow along the sides. You lean closer, curious. Once finished, they place a warm stone, previously heated during the morning, inside the pit and cover it lightly with a piece of hide. Heat rises slowly from it. You reach toward the opening and feel a faint warmth brushing your fingertips. It is like a tiny pocket of comfort hidden in the cold. A small amusing belief once mentioned in winter folklore rises in your memory. Some people imagine ancient humans used the warmth of their own breath in enclosed spaces to help maintain body temperature. You picture a Neanderthal gently blowing into their cupped hands not only for warmth but to share that warmth with someone else nearby. Whether it ever happened exactly that way or not, the image fits easily into the scene you now witness. The group settles into a circle. No one speaks, yet there is communication in every movement. One hunter scoots closer to block a low draft. Another adjusts the hide on someone else's shoulders. The smallest child snuggles between two adults, who tighten their cloaks without hesitation. In this still moment, the idea of family expands beyond blood. It becomes a shape of survival. You lie back against the hides and let your gaze drift upward. The sky above is pale, almost white, with thin strands of cloud stretching across it like brushed silk. The brightness feels diffused, as though the sun is wrapped in a soft scarf. Your eyelids grow slightly heavier. You allow the weight of the moment to ground you. A pair of hunters stand guard at the edge of the resting area. Their posture is steady, alert but not tense. You understand their purpose immediately. Even in rest, winter landscapes can shift quickly. Predators, sudden gusts, or drifting snow can alter plans. The guards scan the horizon for any sign of movement, their silhouettes framed against the snowy backdrop. One guard points to a line of snow being pushed by the wind far in the distance, a long, low drift sliding across the valley floor. It is a gentle sign, but it matters. The group will not stay here for many hours. They will rest only until the next shift in weather signals time to move again. Conserving energy is not laziness. It is strategy. A thoughtful notion passes through your mind. Some anthropologists suggest that winter survival often required more waiting than wandering, knowing when to stop, when to be still, and when to let the body recover was its own skill. Watching the Neanderthals rest now, you feel the truth in that idea. As minutes pass, your muscles begin to unclench. The warmth from nearby bodies seeps into you. You feel your breathing deepen, matching the slow rise and fall of the group around you. The air becomes thicker, almost comforting. The world outside the hollow could be roaring with cold. But inside this shallow dip, everything feels muted and hushed. The fire is not lit here. There is no smoke curling upward, no sparks glowing in the air. Yet warmth exists anyway, shared through bodies, hides, and stillness. You sink into the quiet, feeling your heartbeat slow. The snow around you glimmers gently, refracting small points of light. Frost clings to the shrubs above, sparkling like tiny crystals. A child near you shifts slightly, tucking their hand beneath the fur. Their movement is small but purposeful. They know instinctively how to conserve heat. You mirror their motion, pulling your cloak tighter. The warmth gathers under the fabric, growing slowly but steadily. As you rest, the world around you narrows into a quiet, delicate moment. The Neanderthals remain still, letting the cold do what it does while they save their energy for the next challenge. You realize how peaceful survival can sometimes look. Not desperate, not dramatic, just calm presence, just patience. Eventually, the guards give a short signal. The drift on the horizon has changed direction. That means the wind is about to shift. The group stirs, rising from the hollow with smooth, practiced movements. You rise with them, brushing snow from your clothing. Your body feels restored, warmed from within. As you all step back into the open landscape, the air feels sharper but less intimidating. Rest has strengthened you. Conservation has prepared you. The path ahead glitters faintly with new possibilities. And you continue walking, ready for the next winter lesson waiting just beyond the ridge. You follow the group as they rise from the resting hollow and drift into a stretch of land where the snow glows faintly under the muted afternoon light. The wind quiets again, leaving a peaceful hush that settles into your chest. The Neanderthals walk with renewed steadiness after conserving their strength, and now their attention shifts to something you have been wondering about for a while: how children manage to grow, learn and thrive in an environment that seems bent on freezing everything it touches. You soon discover that winter was not only a challenge for adults, it was a classroom for the young. The group moves toward a cluster of stunted pines that huddle together like old friends. Beneath them lies a patch of relatively bare ground, where snow thins and broken branches litter the earth. You see a few children already exploring the area, poking sticks into shallow drifts, testing how the snow slides off branches, examining marks left by small creatures. Their curiosity seems endless. You smile as one child shakes a branch a bit too enthusiastically, causing a miniature avalanche of powder to fall over their head. They blink, sputter, and then laugh silently, brushing snow from their hair. A widely held view in prehistoric studies is that Neanderthal children learned through direct participation. They watched, they imitated, they practiced. There were no lectures, no pointed explanations, just example and repetition. Watching them now, you can see how this approach fits perfectly into winter life. Everything around them offers lessons, and the cold demands quick understanding. One child crouches near a faint line of tracks. You join them, lowering yourself onto your heels. The prints are small, delicate, almost like tiny punctuation marks pressed into the snow. The child touches one gently, then looks up at an older sibling with a questioning tilt of the head. The older child kneels beside them, runs a finger along the track and points toward a nearby thicket. You follow their gesture and catch a glimpse of movement deep in the branches. Maybe a hare, maybe a stoat. You feel the child absorb the information instantly, storing it like a seed for future use. Nearby, an adult demonstrates how to gather dry, brittle grass hidden beneath icy crusts. The children watch closely as the adult uses a flat stone to scrape aside the top layer of frost, revealing a thin mat of brown fibers. The adult pulls gently, careful not to tear the roots too violently, and then displays the bundle. The children take turns touching the grass, feeling its texture. This simple material might become tinder, bedding, or insulation. The children are learning not just what to gather, but how to handle delicate resources without wasting them. A small memory drifts into your thoughts. Some researchers have noted that the brains of Neanderthals show developmental similarities to ours, suggesting long periods of childhood learning. Others wonder if certain kinds of social instruction were more intuitive than formal, shaped by close family bonds. Imagining these possibilities while watching the children now gives you a tender sense of connection across thousands of winters. One of the children picks up a flint flake lying near a cluster of stones. They turn it over in their palm, fascinated by its sharp edge. You lean in to see. The flake glints as it reflects the pale light. Without being told, the child presses it gently against a stick to mimic scraping. Their movements are clumsy, but the intention is unmistakable. A nearby hunter notices, steps closer, and adjusts the child's grip, guiding their tiny fingers with calm patience. You feel a warmth spread through you at the sight. Another child practices pulling snow aside with the curved bone of a small animal. They scoop carefully, learning how to clear areas without letting cold water seep into the ice beneath. A parent gently corrects their posture, demonstrating a more efficient motion. No words are spoken. The lesson travels through gestures, expressions, and shared focus. Watching it, you sense how deeply trust and closeness shape these interactions. As you shift your gaze, you notice a group of children gathering around a shallow pit where warm stones have been placed. They hover near it, holding their palms above the heat. Their faces relax into small smiles. The warmth thrills them in a way that reminds you of children today, discovering a crackling fireplace for the first time. The adults watch with soft eyes, ensuring they stay safe, while also letting them enjoy the sensation. A playful moment emerges when a child decides to test the slickness of a small icy slope. They slide down on their stomach, arms spread like a delighted seal. Snow sprays outward as they glide. Another child follows, then another. Soon several children are sliding down the slope, shrieking silent laughter, piling into a heap at the bottom. The adults glance over but do not interfere. Even here, in a world of harsh cold, children find joy. A soft idea surfaces in your mind. Some scholars believe that physical play among young ancient humans helped develop strength, coordination, and environmental awareness. Watching these children tumble in snow, you feel the truth of that insight. Each slide, each bump, each burst of laughter deepens their connection to the land that shapes them. Nearby, an elder gathers a group of younger children and shows them how to braid thin strips of bark. The elder's fingers move slowly, carefully, repeating the same simple pattern over and over until a small woven cord takes shape. The children mimic the motion with intense concentration. Their little brows furrow, their fingers fumble, but they persist. You sense that this cord might someday become part of a tool, a binding for a spear or a tie for a warm garment. The elder smiles softly, tapping one child's hands gently as a sign of encouragement. The quiet tenderness of the gesture lingers in the cold air. You notice how eagerly the children respond to guidance, how readily they absorb new challenges. Winter may be difficult, but it is also the perfect teacher. Everything matters, and everything teaches something. You move to another group where older children are practicing quick hand signals used during hunts. They mimic the gestures of adults, fingers pointing, palms rising flat, arms sweeping to indicate direction. Their movements are almost theatrical, exaggerated for practice but purposeful. An adult corrects one gesture with a tilt of the wrist. The child nods firmly and repeats it with newly gained precision. A light-hearted detail crosses your mind. Some enthusiasts like to imagine Neanderthal children inventing little games using stones, bones, and snow, sharpening their instincts while having fun. Watching these children now, you can almost see games unfolding spontaneously between lessons. A tossed pebble, a mock chase, a race to identify tracks. Everything blends into one long learning experience. As daylight wanes, the adults gather the children into a small semicircle. They distribute small pieces of dried food, checking each child for signs of cold or fatigue. You watch one parent tuck a hide more snugly around a child's shoulders. Another rubs a child's palms between warm hands to restore circulation. You feel a gentle ache inside your chest at the tenderness of these moments. Surviving winter takes strength, but raising children in winter takes patience, love, and an understanding deeper than muscle. The children settle into a quiet huddle, resting against each other like a cluster of warm stones. You watch them drift into calm, their eyes half closing, their breaths slow and soft. A faint hum of conversation passes among the adults as they prepare to continue their journey. The children rest only briefly, just enough to reset their small bodies. When the group rises again, the children follow, stepping into footprints left by the adults. Their strides are shorter, their balance wobblier, but their determination shines like a candle against the snow. You fall in step beside them, feeling a new layer of respect settle over you. You realize that Neanderthal childhood was not fragile. It was resilient. It was woven into the rhythm of winter. Every track, every flake, every breeze carried a lesson. And every lesson shaped the next generation into people strong enough to walk these frozen landscapes without fear. With the children gathering new confidence, the group moves forward once more, carrying the soft echo of laughter, learning and warmth through the vast white silence. You continue walking with the group until the air grows heavier with the scent of wood and something sharper beneath it, a faint herbal bitterness drifting through the cold. The Neanderthals move toward a sheltered clearing, ringed by low stones and half-fallen logs. You sense that this place has been used many times before. The ground here is firm and familiar. The hunters begin gathering branches, broken twigs, and handfuls of dried leaves. Today, you are about to witness another quiet secret of winter survival, the ways they soothed aches, eased breathing, and warmed the body with simple medicines drawn from the frozen world. One of the hunters kneels near a cluster of thorny shrubs poking from the snow. They brush away the frost, revealing slender stems dotted with tiny dark berries. Some remain clinging stubbornly to the branches. The hunter plucks a few, rubs them between their palms and inhales. You lean closer and catch the faint aroma of something sweet mixed with resin. Many researchers believe Neanderthals recognized certain plants that could calm pain or help with fever. Seeing this hunter handle the berries so confidently makes the idea feel even more plausible. Nearby, another member of the group crouches near a log covered in pale green lichen. They scrape a patch free, testing its texture between their fingers. The lichen crumbles gently, releasing a mild, earthy smell. Some specialists have suggested that ancient humans might have used certain lichens for treating infections or soothing sore throats. Whether this exact species served such a purpose is uncertain, but imagining it gives the scene an intriguing depth. You take a seat on a flat rock as the group begins to arrange a small fire. Sparks catch quickly, and soon thin curls of smoke rise into the frigid air. The smoke smells different from earlier fires, more fragrant, more complex. One hunter tosses dried herbs onto the flames. The herbs crackle and release a warm, spicy aroma that spreads through the clearing. You breathe it in and feel a gentle warmth glide down your throat, almost as if the air itself is comforting you. A child approaches carrying a small bundle of thin branches. You notice their ends are chewed slightly, as if animals had nibbled them. The child examines one closely, then hands it to an older hunter. The adult inspects it and nods, keeping only a few. You watch as they strip the bark from one of the branches. A fresh scent spreads into the air, crisp and sharp, like winter mint blended with wood. The smell clears your thoughts instantly. You inhale again and feel your chest open slightly. A fascinating idea floats into your mind. Some modern studies suggest that the bark of willow trees contains natural compounds similar to mild pain relievers. Whether Neanderthals knew this consciously or simply discovered its soothing effect over time, the act of gathering and preparing bark now hints at careful observation across generations. The fire burns steadily, growing warmer. Several hunters sit around it, each holding a piece of hide or tool. But the real focus lies in the small clay-like containers placed at the fire's edge. Inside them, mixtures of crushed herbs, melted fat and powdered bark warm slowly. The smells deepen. You catch hints of sharp resin, earthy roots, and something faintly sweet. These mixtures might become ointments for sore muscles, balms for cracked skin, or aromatic smokes meant to ease cold, tightened lungs. One hunter dips a finger into a warm mixture and rubs it along their forearm. You notice how their skin glows slightly in the firelight, the salve leaving a subtle sheen. They smile faintly, shoulders relaxing. You imitate their gesture by rubbing a dab of the mixture on your wrist. The warmth spreads instantly. The scent wraps around your senses, softening the cold like a gentle hand. Another adult demonstrates how to massage the warm salve into tight muscles. A younger member of the group sits with their leg extended while the adult works their palms firmly along the muscle, pressing the salve inward. Steam rises faintly from the skin as it absorbs the warmth. The younger hunter exhales deeply, relief visible in their posture. You feel a quiet ache in your own legs and imagine how welcoming such treatment must feel after a long day of walking on freezing ground. A small spark lands on a nearby log and smolders briefly before fading. You watch the flames dance, swirling upward in slow, winding ribbons. A hunter gently leans toward the fire and breathes in the herb smoke through cupped hands. The practice seems deliberate, almost ritualistic. Their shoulders loosen as they exhale, sending a thin stream of smoke curling toward the sky. A thoughtful discussion you once heard in an academic setting flickers in your memory. Some experts believe Neanderthals deliberately used aromatic plants in fires to help ease congestion during harsh winters, while others think the effect may have been accidental. Imagining either possibility adds richness to the moment. Perhaps they learned simply by paying attention to which smoke made breathing easier. Perhaps it was intentional. Either way, the knowledge feels earned. The fire crackles softly. The group takes turns warming their hands near the fragrant flames, or rubbing their limbs with warmed salves. A child sits with their feet extended toward the fire, while an elder wraps them in a hide lined with heated grasses. The grasses release a soft, calming aroma, almost like warm hay after rain. You watch the child relax, their toes wiggling under the hide. As the warmth deepens, a hunter begins heating stones in the fire. Once the stones glow faintly with captured heat, they lift them using thick pieces of hide and place them inside a shallow pit lined with grasses. The pit fills with warmth steadily. One by one, the group sits around it, letting the heat rise toward their bodies like a natural steam bed. You crouch beside it, feeling warmth seep upward through your clothes, loosening any tightness around your knees and back. A playful detail rises in your thoughts. Some storytellers imagine that ancient people sometimes placed heated stones inside, makeshift wrap pouches to use as warming pads during especially cold nights. Whether or not that exact practice happened is uncertain, but imagining it makes the scene feel even more intimate. You picture someone slipping a warm stone into their bedding with sleepy gratitude. Nearby, two hunters combine ground herbs with animal fat, creating a soft paste. They spread it along cracked skin on their palms, massaging it slowly. The paste smells calming, with undertones of pine. Their fingers move methodically, familiar with the routine. You sense that winter has taught them well how to care for their bodies and each other. The wind drifts through the clearing, carrying away smoke in graceful wisps. You step closer to the fire, letting its warmth rise into your chest. Around you, the group radiates a peaceful stillness. They are not rushing, they are tending, healing, strengthening. You realize that winter survival was not only about shelter and food, it was also about maintaining the body, easing strain and nurturing the small pains before they grew into threats. Gradually, the fire softens to gentle embers. The hunters pack away their herbs and mixtures, storing them in small hide pouches. The clearing feels warmer now, not only from the fire but from the calm energy you share with the group. You rise with them, stretching your back. Your muscles feel more pliant, your breathing deeper. As the Neanderthals prepare to move again, a soft plume of herb-scented smoke drifts upward, spiraling into the cold sky. You watch it fade into pale air, carrying with it tiny traces of warmth, calm, and ancient wisdom. When the group finally resumes its journey, you follow with renewed ease, ready to discover the next layer of winter survival waiting just beyond the snow-covered ridge. You walk beside the group as the air thins into a sharper chill, the kind that hints at shifting weather even before clouds appear. The Neanderthals raise their faces slightly, tasting the cold on their tongues, reading the air in ways that feel almost instinctive. You sense that something subtle is happening. The sky looks calm, but they already know a change is coming. Today, you will learn how they read the heavens not with instruments or charts, but with senses tuned by countless winters. The land around you sprawls into a wide field of unbroken snow. Tiny crystals sparkle beneath the soft light like flecks of crushed glass. Above you, the sky is pale but not empty. Thin streaks of clouds drift in slow, deliberate bands. One of the older hunters stops walking and studies the sky with a stillness so profound you find yourself holding your breath. They narrow their eyes, tracking the faintest shift in color near the horizon. A widely recognized observation among experts is that winter-adapted humans had to predict weather changes quickly to avoid danger. Watching this group, you feel how natural that skill becomes in landscapes where storms can rise like hidden creatures. The hunter draws a line in the snow with a finger, pointing toward a pale halo forming around the low sun. The ring glimmers faintly, a ghostly circle that sends a whisper of warning through the group. You feel that warning too. Halos often signal ice crystals gathering high in the sky, a sign of incoming snow. Nearby, a younger hunter scoops up a handful of snow and lets it fall through their fingers. You watch the flakes tumble loosely, fluttering instead of drifting straight down. Something about the way the snow falls makes the group's movements shift quietly. The hunters share glances, adjusting their pace. You realize that snowflakes themselves speak. Weighty ones tell of warmer air. Sharp, dusty flakes hint at colder winds. Fluttering flakes like these suggest unsettled weather swirling above. A curious detail flits into your thoughts. Some northern peoples today can discern upcoming storms simply by the feel of humidity against the skin or the faint prickle of charged air. Imagining Neanderthals doing something similar feels very natural as you watch them heighten their attention to the sky. The oldest member of the group lifts their hand, palm facing upward, testing the air like someone weighing something invisible. The light changes. You notice it first on the snow. Shadows soften, then grow longer in odd angles. The sun hides behind a drifting band of cloud, but a faint glimmer remains. The world seems neither bright nor dim, paused between two moods. One hunter kneels and presses their ear close to the snow, listening for subtle vibrations. You tilt your head, curious. Snow can carry distant sounds, and the way those sounds travel shifts before storms. The hunter listens for several long breaths, then rises again with a quiet hum of understanding. Above you, birds fly in a wide arc, heading away from the valley. Their wings beat in long, decisive motions. A few dip low over your heads before joining the rest. You notice the group's reaction immediately. They follow the bird's path with their eyes, tracking the direction. Animals often sense weather shifts before humans do, and Neanderthals learn to watch them closely. The hunters adjust their route, angling toward a band of rocky terrain that promises shelter if the sky breaks open. As you walk, a child tugs gently at a parent's sleeve and points upward. You follow the small finger and notice something new. The clouds are no longer thin and wispy. They deepen, forming layers like overlapping veils. The lowest ones move faster than the ones above, a sign the wind has changed direction. The group pauses again. You feel a hush settle over everyone. This is the moment when decisions matter. Stay exposed, and you risk walking straight into a fierce storm. Follow the sky's hints, and you might find safety in time. One hunter crouches in the snow and draws simple shapes, long strokes for wind, dots for falling snow, a wide curve for safe ground. The others gather around the impromptu map, studying the interpretation. You watch them point to the horizon, then back to the drawing. This is winter planning made visible. A soft memory of something you once read flickers through your mind. Some specialists suggest that ancient humans used cloud patterns, wind scents, and even bird calls to anticipate changes in pressure. Others argue that experiential learning shaped these abilities over generations. Imagining both possibilities, you feel the depth of knowledge hidden in these simple gestures. The group continues onward, but the pace is no longer slow. It is measured, precise. They stay close together. The hunters at the front watch the sky constantly. You keep an eye on the horizon too. A faint band of darker grey is rising slowly like ink spreading through paper. The wind's tone shifts, losing its whistle and becoming more like a low hum. You feel it pressing against your cheeks with a thicker texture. As you walk, one of the hunters plucks a handful of dry grasses poking from under a snowdrift. They toss the grasses lightly into the air. The blades swirl upward briefly before blowing sideways in a sharp tilt. This simple motion reveals a strong crosswind just above ground level. You watch as the group alters course slightly, aligning themselves with the new direction. Small signals, small adjustments, big consequences. Soon the air grows colder in a sudden way, sharp and metallic, almost stinging your nostrils. The hunters look at each other knowingly. Blades of snow begin to rise from the ground, not falling from the sky but lifted by gusts. The wind is preparing to change. You feel the land inhaling before something large exhales. Then it happens. A low rumble rolls across the valley. Not thunder, but the muffled, vast voice of shifting clouds. The group stops. They do not panic. They simply watch the sky, reading it carefully. A faint curtain of snow appears far to your right, sweeping across the distant hills like a slow-moving ghost. A child presses close to an adult's leg, watching the sky with awe rather than fear. The adult kneels and points to the edges of the snow curtain, tracing its direction. The child nods solemnly, absorbing the knowledge. The hunters gather briefly to share the final assessment. Then they choose a path leading toward a rocky outcrop with a low overhang. Shelter awaits there. They begin moving with a unified determination. The air between you and the coming snow darkens subtly. As you walk swiftly but steadily, you feel an appreciation for the depth of winter wisdom flowing around you. The sky is not merely scenery for these people. It is a guide, a warning system, and a companion. Every shift in color, every whisper of wind, every flicker of light offers clues for survival. When you reach the overhang, the rocks loom like a protective arm curled around the clearing. The group settles beneath it just as the first true gust of snow sweeps through the valley floor. You watch the blizzard's edge approach, slow but massive, a wall of white noise moving across the world. You feel safe here, sheltered by ancient stone and wiser minds. Snow thickens, swirling wildly beyond your reach. The group remains calm, their breathing even, their eyes steady. They read the sky correctly. They arrived in time. You settle beside them, breathing in the cold, clean air and listening to the blizzard's distant roar. You feel the stone at your back, solid and patient. And you realize that winter reveals its secrets to those who know how to listen. The storm passes more quickly than you expect. By the time the group emerges from under the rocky overhang, the sky has cleared into a pale winter blue. Fresh snow sparkles across the land, smoothing every surface into soft folds. You follow the Neanderthals into this clean world, feeling the crisp air glide through your lungs. Their steps are steady again, purposeful. Something has shifted in their focus. you soon realize why. In winter, no group survives alone. Even the strongest need allies. And now you are about to witness how Neanderthals shared knowledge, traded small treasures, and learned from neighbors who crossed their paths. The group walks along a narrow ridge that overlooks a shallow valley. Below, smoke rises faintly from a sheltered dip in the snow. Not the thick, steady smoke of a large fire, more like a thin thread drifting from a small hearth. The Neanderthals pause, observing. No tension fills their bodies. Instead, you feel curiosity ripple through them. They descend toward the valley with the calm expectation of meeting familiar strangers. As you approach, you notice footprints leading to the site. Larger ones, smaller ones, and a few that drag slightly through the snow. When your group rounds a boulder, you see another band of Neanderthals gathered around a small fire. Their clothing is similar but not identical. Different furs, different stitching. Their tools glint with shapes your group did not make. The newcomers look up, and for a moment both groups stand quietly, reading each other's expressions. Then the silence breaks in a warm, unhurried way. A few steps forward, soft gestures of greeting, hands lifted slightly, calm eyes. This simple exchange feels older than language. The newcomers shift to make space by their fire. Your group approaches, aware but relaxed. You sense the quiet relief that always comes from seeing others who understand the same winter. A long-accepted idea in anthropology is that early human groups had interactions that ranged from friendly exchange to shared hunting efforts, depending on circumstances. The scene unfolding now seems to fall toward the gentle end of that spectrum. The two groups settle around the fire with slow, deliberate movements. A few members from each side place objects in the middle: stone flakes, pieces of worked bone, dried berries. The exchange begins without words. One hunter from your group offers a beautifully shaped scraper with fine ridges. A member of the other group runs their thumb along its edge, impressed. In return, they place a small bundle of dried mushrooms into your hunter's hand. When you lean closer, you smell a deep, earthy aroma. These mushrooms look different from ones your group gathered earlier. Perhaps they come from a region deeper in the valley, where shadows fall longer and moisture lingers beneath decaying logs. Nearby, a child from your group shyly approaches a stranger of similar age. The two stare at each other with cautious curiosity, then begin poking at the snow together, drawing shapes with sticks. You smile at the simplicity of their interaction. Children do not need explanations for friendship. One of the newcomers unwraps a hide bundle containing thin strips of sinew, stretched and prepared with meticulous care. They hold it out. A hunter from your group inspects the quality, nodding appreciatively. Sinew like this can bind spearheads or reinforce clothing seams. In return, your group offers a piece of flint with unusual coloration, streaked with warm amber tones. You realize this flint must have come from a different region, perhaps carried for days as a valuable piece. Knowledge moves with these exchanges as much as goods. You sit near the fire and notice how the smoke carries different scents than your group's fires. Someone from the neighboring band added bark from a tree you have not smelled before. It burns with a sweet, resinous aroma that clears your thoughts. You watch as a hunter from your group gestures toward the bark, asking without words where it came from. The newcomer points toward a ridge in the distance. Information passes effortlessly, and you feel the quiet thrill of discovery humming through the gathering. A little playful memory surfaces in your mind from something you once heard. Some storytellers imagine that Neanderthals shared small tricks or odd habits during these encounters, like which snow is best for insulating shelters, or which stones spark the brightest embers. Whether that happened exactly is impossible to know, but the idea fits beautifully with what you witness now. Knowledge drifting between groups like gentle sparks carried by the fire's smoke. One elder from the other band demonstrates a technique for striking two stones together to produce a stronger, more reliable shower of sparks. The rhythm is sharper, more angled. You notice your group watching closely, absorbing every detail. Then one of your elders shows how to split fat-soaked fibers to make longer-lasting fire starters. The newcomers observe with equal attention. In this quiet exchange, winter expertise flows back and forth without ego or ownership. You catch a glimpse of an object passing from one group to another, a necklace made of small beads carved from bone. Not ornamental in the way modern jewelry might be, but clearly meaningful. Perhaps it marks identity. Perhaps it carries memories. The receiving hunter touches it gently, then presses it to the center of their chest before offering a shaped stone blade in return. It is a beautiful moment, so subtle yet rich with human connection. A lively debate you recall from research comes to mind. Some specialists suggest Neanderthals shared knowledge and resources through occasional gatherings like this, forming small networks across wide territories. Others believe exchanges were rare, limited to chance meetings. Watching these two bands now, you imagine that winter conditions encouraged cooperation when paths crossed. The frozen world rewards generosity more than rivalry. As the exchange continues, a pot of warm broth is placed by the fire. It smells rich with fat and herbs. Members from both groups take turns sipping from it, passing the container carefully. When you taste it, warmth spreads through your chest instantly. You exhale slowly, feeling the tension melt from your shoulders. This shared warmth seems symbolic of the moment itself. One hunter from the neighboring band points toward the sky, drawing shapes with their finger. They mimic the arc of cloud movement, then hold up two fingers to indicate how many days before a larger weather shift. Your group watches attentively. Weather knowledge is priceless in winter. You realize that these passing predictions could guide tomorrow's route or determine tonight's shelter choice. The sky has become a shared language. As the afternoon deepens, the two groups begin to prepare for their separate paths. But the parting carries no sadness, only a quiet acknowledgement that winter's roads weave people together briefly, then unwind. You watch as hands touch forearms gently in farewell, a gesture filled with warmth. A few last items are traded, a few last smiles exchanged. When your group finally begins to climb back toward higher ground, you glance over your shoulder. The newcomers remain by their fire, their figures small in the settling snow. Then they fade behind a ridge. You feel the lingering warmth of the encounter in your chest. As you walk, the snow begins to fall again, lightly this time. Each flake brushes your skin like a whisper. The group carries new knowledge in their minds, new materials in their packs, and perhaps a little extra confidence in the world around them. You step into the footprints ahead of you, feeling how human connection has quietly strengthened the entire group. Winter may be harsh, but wisdom shared between neighbors softens its edge. And you move forward now with a calmer heart, ready to face what the frozen landscape reveals next. You move with the group into a stretch of forest where the snow quiets under thick branches, muffling every sound until you can hear your own pulse. The air feels denser here, carrying the scents of damp bark, cold earth, and something faintly animal. The Neanderthals slow their pace, not out of fatigue but alertness. This part of winter demands sharper listening, not to the wind, not to the sky, but to the creatures that roam these woods after dusk. You take a breath. The cold air tingles the back of your throat. The trees around you stand tall, their limbs draped with frost. Shadows stretch long between trunks. A hush settles over everything. It is the kind of quiet that is not empty but full of hidden movement, full of small sounds waiting to be noticed. One of the hunters raises a hand. Everyone stops. You strain your ears. At first you hear nothing, then faintly, a soft shuffle, a low scrape, something moving slowly across snow. You tilt your head and listen again. The noise comes from the right, beyond a tangle of roots. When you glance at the Neanderthals, you see no fear in them, just recognition. They are listening to the forest as if it were speaking. A commonly shared insight among researchers is that Neanderthals paid close attention to animal behavior, not only for hunting but also for reading environmental shifts. The forest speaks through its creatures, and right now you feel that truth settle around you like a blanket. A hunter touches the ground lightly with their fingertips, then lifts them to their nose. A faint scent clings to the snow, musky and warm. You inhale carefully. It smells like fur, perhaps the trace of a predator. You wrap your cloak tighter. Predators are winter experts too. The group begins to move again, but slowly, carefully. You follow, stepping into their prints. Soon you notice delicate tracks leading between the trees. The paw prints are large, widely spaced, and the snow around them still looks fresh. The hunters cluster around the tracks, studying their shape and depth. One traces the edge of a print with a fingertip. You look closely and see the faint impression of claws. A faint sound drifts across the forest. A low growl, so distant it might be your imagination. The hunters exchange glances. Their expressions remain calm. Nothing seems hurried or panicked. They have heard this before. A lone feline, perhaps, or a wolf moving through its territory. These creatures are not always threats. Sometimes they are guides, their behaviors hinting at upcoming weather changes or shifts in prey patterns. One hunter points to claw marks on a tree trunk. The scratches run in diagonal lines, carved deep into the bark. You touch them gently. The wood is rough and cold under your fingers. The marks are fresh. The forest feels alive with presence. A curious thought flickers into your mind. Some storytellers like to imagine that ancient humans could interpret the tone of a predator's call. A higher rumble might signal hunger. A shorter, sharper call could indicate territorial defense. Whether or not that is entirely accurate, imagining it now feels natural as you watch the group pause to interpret every sound. A sudden flurry of snow falls from an overhead branch. You glance upward and see a raven perched high in the tree, staring down with bright intelligence. The bird croaks softly, then flaps its wings and flies deeper into the woods. Several members of the group follow its path with their eyes. Ravens often know where carcasses lie. They also react to animal movements in ways that can reveal danger or opportunity. You sense the group weighing this information carefully. A hunter kneels and asks the forest a question with their body. They tilt their head, listening intently. From somewhere unseen, a soft rustling rises. More movement. Slower this time. Then a long silence. Then a snap of twigs. Something large is nearby, but moving in a lazy, unhurried way. You feel tension coil inside your chest, but the Neanderthals feel none. They know that listening is not about fear, it is about understanding, and winter animals are honest. They reveal themselves through weight on snow, through breath in the air, through the rhythm of their steps. The group circles a fallen log and climbs onto a small rise. From this vantage point, the forest stretches into the dimming afternoon. You crouch beside a hunter and peer forward, scanning the shadows. Then you see them. A pair of wolves moving through the trees. Their fur blends with the landscape, mottled grey and white. Their strides are unhurried. You watch one stop and raise its head. Steam puffs from its muzzle. It listens to something in the distance. You feel your breath catch. The hunters remain still, lowering themselves slightly to avoid drawing attention. They are not afraid. They are studying. A widely supported idea in ecological studies is that wolves often shift their patterns ahead of weather changes. They sense pressure drops, scents carried on high winds, and the subtle movements of prey. Watching these wolves now, you sense that the Neanderthals will use this moment to gather predictions about the night ahead. The wolves shift direction, trotting toward a slope where the snow lies undisturbed. Their movements are smooth, almost elegant. You watch how they avoid certain drifts, stepping only where the snow looks firm. The hunters quietly take note. You feel your own eyes sharpening, trying to imitate this level of awareness. You notice how the snow sinks slightly deeper near the roots of old trees. You notice where the surface sparkles differently, hinting at hollows beneath. The wolves disappear behind a hill. The forest grows quiet again. You wait, letting the stillness settle around you like cool smoke. Nearby, a small creature darts through the underbrush. A hare. Its rapid movements send tiny sprays of snow into the air. It pauses, ears twitching madly, sensing the earlier predators. The hunters watch the hare with interest. Its frantic behavior reveals more than tracks could. A prey animal responds to signs you might miss. If it is on edge, something larger is nearby. A playful detail from winter lore comes to mind. Some people say you can predict storms by how restless animals become. Imagining Neanderthals noticing the same clues feels almost inevitable. A hunter points upward. You follow their gesture and see snow clinging heavily to pine branches above. A few clumps fall when the wind picks up slightly. The hunter raises 2 fingers. You understand the message. Heavily laden branches often fall shortly before snowfall intensifies. This is the forest's subtle warning. The group adjusts again. They do not rush. They simply turn toward denser trees where the wind cannot slice as easily. As you walk, you listen, not just with your ears, but with your entire body. The forest speaks in creaks, in muffled steps, in muted breaths. You begin to understand how the Neanderthals learned to interpret these sounds as cues. You stop at a clearing where the group circles together once more. A hunter lifts a bundle of dried grass and crushes it between their fingers. A soft crackle rises. The dryness suggests the cold has deepened. Another picks up a twig and snaps it. The break is sharp and clean. Cold air tightens wood fibers. These are small details, yet they shape the group's decisions. A distant hoot echoes from deep within the woods. An owl. Its call is long, low, and steady. The group listens. Owls also hunt prey that reacts to weather. A steady call often means stable conditions. A rapid or high-pitched series of calls can signal that something is shifting. The call tonight remains calm. A small debate echoes in your mind from something you once read. Some specialists think Neanderthals may have used animal calls as environmental indicators. Others believe they simply learned to understand patterns through repetition. Both ideas feel close to what you experience now. Whether intuitive or learned, the knowledge is real. The day begins to dim. Shadows lengthen and merge beneath the trees. The group gathers wood from fallen branches and forms a small fire pit. The flames soon glow softly, illuminating the underside of the nearest branches. You feel warmth brush your hands as you sit. While the fire crackles, you continue listening. Far off, a low howl rolls along the icy ground. Not threatening, not aggressive, just a voice carried on cold air, telling the world where it stands. The hunters look toward the sound, nod once, and relax. They understand what it means. You feel yourself relax too. Side by side with these ancient companions, you realize winter survival is not always about strength or fire or food. Sometimes it is about listening to the creatures who share the land, their rhythms, their warnings, their quiet wisdom. As the fire lights your face and the forest settles into night, you close your eyes briefly, hearing the soft chorus of winter creatures drifting through the dark. You feel more connected to this frozen world than ever before. The group prepares to rest, and you feel yourself ready to follow them into the next lesson that tomorrow brings. You awaken to a soft glow rising through the trees, the faint light of morning filtering into the clearing where the group rested. The fire from the night before has cooled into a bed of pale ash, though a few embers still hold a quiet warmth beneath the surface. As you stand, stretching your limbs, you notice the Neanderthals are already moving with calm intention. Today, their steps carry a new purpose, caring for those who struggle. In a world as cold as this, strength is not measured only by muscle or speed, but by the willingness to lift and protect one another. You walk with the group as they circle around a figure seated on a hide. It is one of the younger adults, their posture slumped slightly, their breath visible in short, uneven puffs. When you look closer, you see their leg is wrapped in thick layers of fur, secured with sinew. The injury is not new, but the cold makes healing a fragile process. Several members of the group kneel beside the injured hunter, checking the wrapping, pressing gently around the edges, applying warm salve from the mixtures prepared the previous day. You watch the hunter wince slightly, then relax as warmth seeps into the limb. A widely accepted point in studies of early humans is that cooperative care improved their survival dramatically. Observing the group now, you feel how deeply this truth resonates. Without such support, winter could turn a minor injury into a death sentence. But within a group, weakness becomes a shared burden rather than an individual downfall. One of the elders tugs lightly on your sleeve and gestures toward a small nook formed between two large tree roots. There, wrapped snugly in furs, lies an older member of the group. Their breathing is slow, their cheeks flushed with the effort of staying warm. Another adult kneels beside them, offering sips of warm broth from a small container. You notice the gentleness of the gesture, the way the caretaker supports the elder's head just enough to help them swallow without discomfort. The elder closes their eyes for a moment and exhales softly. You feel a swell of tenderness at the sight. In many modern discussions, Neanderthals are portrayed as rugged and powerful, yet moments like this reveal a softer, quieter strength. A strength rooted in patience, empathy, and shared responsibility. A young child approaches with a handful of snow, pressing it carefully against the injured hunter's fever-warm forehead. The action is small, almost ceremonial. The hunter gives the child a faint smile. You feel warmth spread across your chest. Even the smallest members understand what care looks like. A faint, playful memory from an old winter tale enters your mind. Some imagine that ancient children learned healing first through imitation, offering snow, warm stones or bits of herb, simply because they saw adults do the same. Watching the child now, you sense how deeply learning and compassion intertwine. The group begins preparing a more secure resting area. They arrange hides into a thicker bed, layering furs with grasses for insulation. Two hunters dig a shallow depression in the snow to create a windbreak, packing snow tightly around the edges to form a protective barrier. The cold air shifts slightly as the barrier rises, creating a pocket of calm. The injured hunter is helped gently to the new nest, their body supported on both sides by strong arms. You notice how no one rushes. Every movement is deliberate and steady, as though caring for the vulnerable is not an interruption to survival but a central part of it. The Neanderthals exchange brief glances, communicating silently about what needs to be done next. Someone checks the injured leg again, making sure the binding is secure. Another places a freshly warmed stone near the hunter's hip, wrapping it in leather so the heat disperses slowly. A discussion you once heard in an academic circle drifts through your thoughts. Some specialists point to fossils showing healed injuries, suggesting that Neanderthals lived long after serious wounds, which means they must have received extended care from their companions. Others propose that social bonds played a larger role in winter survival than previously assumed. Imagining both interpretations, you feel the truth of them in this quiet, snowy moment. One of the hunters begins grinding dried berries between two stones, creating a paste that smells faintly sweet. They mix it with melted fat and press the paste into a small bark container. You tilt your head curiously. Perhaps it is nourishment for the elder, perhaps a mild remedy. The mixture is passed to one of the caretakers, who kneels beside the older individual and helps them eat. The elder's breathing deepens slowly, their expressions softening as the warmth and food ease the strain. You kneel nearby, watching how the group members adjust the hides around them, tucking edges gently, smoothing wrinkles, sealing warmth in. The tender precision of these gestures moves you. In the heart of winter, these small comforts mean survival. Nearby, a young hunter starts carving a simple crutch from a sturdy branch. Their knife scrapes along the wood in steady strokes, releasing the smell of fresh bark. They shape the branch carefully, rounding the top to avoid chafing and flattening the bottom for better traction on snow. The creativity and care behind the action feel deeply human. You sense pride forming in the young hunter's posture as they work. As the morning stretches on, the injured hunter tests the new crutch with cautious steps. Two adults support them gently, one on each side, while they practice balancing. Their progress is slow, but steady. The group watches with quiet encouragement. This is how recovery happens in winter, step by step, supported by many hands. You shift your gaze to the elder resting by the tree roots. They have fallen asleep, cheeks pink with returning warmth. A child sits beside them, humming softly, tracing shapes on the hide covering their legs. You feel your heart soften at the scene. Care flows naturally here, without hesitation. A playful, almost tender idea surfaces. Some people imagine that early humans shared stories, especially during care, using quiet tales to soothe the sick or the young. Whether it is fact or fantasy, the image feels fitting now. The soft humming near the elder sounds like the beginning of such a story. The group prepares to move soon. They pack light, leaving the resting nest intact in case the elder needs to return. Two hunters fashion a simple sled from branches and leather straps. The injured hunter will ride part of the way, conserving strength. The sled glides smoothly over the snow when tested. The Neanderthals gather their belongings, check the bindings, tighten their cloaks and lift the injured hunter onto the sled with careful, practiced motions. When everyone is ready, they begin to walk again, keeping a pace that accommodates the weakest among them. As you join them, stepping into their steady rhythm, you feel a profound truth settle in your bones. Winter rewards the strong, but it protects the compassionate. Strength alone cannot endure 400,000 winters, but strength paired with kindness? That is a force as steady as firelight and as warm as shared breath. You look at the group around you, bound not by convenience but by care, and you understand that this quiet commitment to supporting the vulnerable shaped the survival of their people as much as any shelter, tool or flame. Snow drifts gently as you continue forward, the injured hunter resting safely among companions, the elder warmed by shared hands and voices, and the group moving together with a kind of ancient grace. You continue with the group as they move steadily across a broad plain where the snow lies smooth and untouched, reflecting the pale afternoon light like a giant sheet of silk. The wind is gentler now, brushing against your face with a cool, steady breath rather than a biting sting. The injured hunter rides comfortably on the sled, supported by two companions who walk with slow confidence. Ahead, the landscape begins to shift. The hills roll more sharply. The air carries a hint of coming frost. You sense the group preparing to adjust their strategies again. Winter never stays still, and surviving it means changing with each new mood. The Neanderthals pause near a cluster of wind-sculpted rocks. Their surfaces shine with thin layers of frost, and the shapes cast elongated shadows over the snow. For a moment, everyone stands quietly, listening to something beyond sound. A subtle alertness ripples through the group. You crouch beside them, resting a hand on the snow. It feels colder than before, more brittle. Something about the air whispers a warning. A widely held observation in archaeological research is that Neanderthals adapted quickly to even the smallest environmental changes. Watching this group now, you see that flexibility in every gesture. One hunter lifts a handful of snow and squeezes it lightly. It crumbles easily instead of clumping. Dry snow, colder temperatures. Another taps a frozen twig. The snap echoes sharply. The cold has deepened. A child presses their ear to the ground again, feeling the subtle vibration of shifting winds. A faint idea from winter lore arises in your mind. Some people believe you can feel coming cold through the tightness of the air around your nose and lips. As you breathe in now, the air stings slightly, confirming what the group sensed already. The temperature is dropping. The hunters begin adjusting their clothing. Hoods are tightened. Extra layers are pulled around wrists and ankles. Thick hides are shifted to cover more of the lower face. Even the children mimic these actions without being asked. They know what cold can do. You do the same, tucking your hands beneath your cloak. The warmth settles around your chest. The landscape ahead becomes uneven, full of dips and ridges shaped by the winter winds. The group navigates carefully, testing each step with quiet, thoughtful patience. One hunter uses a long stick to check the depth of the snow in tricky spots. Another clears loose powder from a narrow path to reveal firmer ground beneath. The children walk in the footprints of adults, learning automatically which routes are safer. A thoughtful memory from a discussion you once heard comes back to you. Some researchers propose that Neanderthals practiced a form of seasonal map-making, not by drawing but by storing detailed knowledge of terrain in their minds. Others believe they relied more on moment-to-moment observation. As you walk now, stepping into the prints of those ahead of you, both theories feel true. This group reads the land like a familiar story that changes each time they open it. A hunter at the front pauses suddenly. Everyone freezes. You listen. At first, all you hear is wind drifting lightly through the snow-laden branches of distant trees. Then you sense it, a soft pulse in the air, almost like a single breath from the land itself. It is the kind of sound that does not come from animals. It comes from shifting ice, from snow settling deeply, from frost expanding across rock. The group waits. No noise follows. But the message is clear. The plain may hide unstable pockets beneath the surface. The hunters adjust formation. Instead of moving in a loose line, they tighten into a cluster. Adults position themselves around children and injured members. Each step becomes slower, more deliberate. You feel your heartbeat slow to match their rhythm. The group spreads weight carefully, allowing stronger members to test the ground first. No one complains about the slower pace. Winter demands this patience. A short while later, the group reaches a small rise at the edge of the plain. From this vantage point, you see a new challenge ahead. The path narrows into a corridor between snow-draped boulders. The wind channels through it with greater force, carrying fine shards of ice that sting as they touch your cheeks. The injured hunter on the sled is shifted to the center of the group for extra protection. You feel the atmosphere shift again, not in fear but in readiness. You move into the corridor. The wind whistles with a higher pitch here, revealing something about its speed and direction. Snow beneath your feet changes texture. It becomes harder, almost glassy in places. One hunter kneels to cut a small groove into the snow with a flint blade. The top layer flakes away cleanly, revealing ice just beneath. The hunter frowns slightly and gestures for the group to slow even more. You understand the concern. Ice like this can be treacherous. The children cling to adult hands as the group steps carefully forward. You mimic their steps, placing each foot exactly where someone else has stepped safely. The wind grows sharper, slipping between layers of clothing like the thin teeth of a chill that has waited all day for this moment. The Neanderthals begin humming softly. Not a song, more a shared vibration. You sense that it helps steady their breath and maintain calm. A curious thought enters your mind. Some modern cold climate communities hum or chant quietly while working in harsh conditions, using the sound to regulate breath. Imagining Neanderthals doing something similar feels entirely natural now. Eventually, the corridor opens into a sheltered hollow, where the wind weakens again. The temperature here feels less aggressive, though still sharp. The group regathers, checking on each other. A hunter places a warm stone near the injured member's leg, refreshing the heat. A child rubs their hands together vigorously and presses them against their own cheeks to restore feeling. Slowly, the group settles into a brief pause. You look around and realize this hollow is perfectly shaped to offer a moment of rest. Smooth snow forms gentle walls. The sky above is visible through a narrow opening. Pale afternoon light filters down like a soft blessing. A few hunters begin reinforcing the edges of the hollow by packing snow tightly with their palms. This creates a partial windbreak. Two others gather small sticks and dried grasses from a nearby tree root. The clearing soon fills with the scent of tender firelight again, as they coax a small flame to life. It flickers, warming the air just enough to ease the cold's bite. One of the elders checks the injured hunter's leg again, applying more warmed salve. The hunter's expression softens. Strength returns. You sit beside them for a moment, offering silent companionship. Their breathing steadies, their shoulders relax. You see how deeply these small acts of care matter. While the fire crackles, another hunter begins shaping a small tool from bone. Their movements are slow but steady. You watch as they carve delicate notches along the edge. It seems that even during rest, every moment in winter is used to prepare for what might come next. Tools must be trusted, clothing repaired, plans adjusted. A faint idea from ongoing archaeological debates comes to you. Some specialists believe Neanderthals practiced constant micro-adaptations, changing tiny habits or tools daily to match new weather or terrain. Others think their strategies were stable across longer periods. Observing this group now, you feel the elegance of continuous adaptation in the air around you. The wind shifts slightly, blowing loose snow into the hollow. A hunter lifts their face, sniffing the air. You do the same. The scent carries a hint of moisture, faint but noticeable. Perhaps warmer air is rising somewhere nearby. Perhaps a slight thaw will come later. Or perhaps snow will fall more steadily tonight. The hunters read the scent together, their eyes thoughtful. The fire burns low. The group feels ready again. They pack the remaining herbs and stones. They gather their hides. The injured hunter shifts on the sled, holding onto the sides with renewed stability. When everyone is prepared, the Neanderthals rise as one. No one is rushed. No one is hesitant. The landscape has changed, and they change with it. You step forward with them, feeling your footing grow sure again. The cold world stretches ahead, wide and unpredictable, but the group moves with a calm that mirrors the quiet strength inside you. Winter may test them. Winter may shift, crack, or freeze without warning, but adaptation flows through their bodies like breath. With each step, you feel yourself learning from their patience, their awareness, and their steady willingness to adjust. You follow into the deepening light, ready for the next curve in the frozen landscape. You continue traveling with the group as the light thins into a soft, silvery wash across the snowy plains. The world feels quieter here, almost as if winter itself is holding its breath. The Neanderthals move with unhurried certainty, their bodies angled slightly forward to cut the cold. You notice a shift in their rhythm. Their steps become smoother. Their silhouettes blend naturally into the white landscape. You begin to understand that survival here is not only about fire, shelter, or food. It is also about learning how to move through winter without announcing your presence. Today you witness how they merge with the harsh land like shadows shaped by frost. The terrain ahead rises into gentle slopes covered with drifts that seem untouched. The group spreads out slightly, adopting a pattern that reduces noise. You imitate them, placing your feet exactly where the snow seems most firm. Beneath you, the snow emits only a faint whisper. No crunch, no sudden sink. The hunters have read the terrain carefully. Soft powder mutes sound. Crusted snow betrays it. You follow their silent choreography with growing awe. A commonly accepted observation about ancient human hunters is that they approached animals with astonishing stealth. Watching the Neanderthals now, you see how deeply that skill must have been valued. They are not hiding from prey in this moment, but from the cold itself. Movement that conserves energy becomes movement that avoids danger. A hunter raises a hand, and the group halts. You feel the air shift around them, as though the landscape itself pauses. The hunter crouches and studies the ground. You lean closer. Beneath a thin dusting of snow lies a frozen patch that reflects the sky with a faint shimmer. Ice. A misstep here could mean a loud crack, the kind that echoes across valleys. The hunter brushes the snow to reveal a safe route around the hazard. You follow quietly, adding this small lesson to your growing winter knowledge. As you continue, a curious detail floats into your mind. Some cold climate trackers today claim they can move almost noiselessly by distributing weight toward the outside of their feet. Whether Neanderthals used similar techniques is unknown, but imagining it now feels strangely natural. You try it, and the snow offers less resistance beneath your sole. Ahead, the group reaches a narrow corridor shaped by tall frozen shrubs. The plants stand brittle and pale, their branches encased in thin ice. The Neanderthals press close to them, using the shapes as partial cover. Their fur blends with the shadows cast by the frozen branches. The effect is astonishing. At a distance, they would look like part of the landscape itself. The corridor opens into a small field where faint trails crisscross the snow. These are not footprints. They are the subtle paths created by animals who hugged the ground as they passed. Rabbits, foxes, small predators. The paths weave like fragile threads. The hunters kneel to inspect them, but not for signs of prey. Instead, they study direction and pattern. If these animals avoid certain areas, so should the group. A distant rustle draws your attention, something moving lightly across the surface of the snow. You strain your eyes and spot a fox slipping between the shadows of rocks. It pauses, ears flicked forward. Its breath rises in delicate plumes. Then it darts into a dip in the snow, disappearing as quickly as it appeared. The Neanderthals watch quietly. Animals like this reveal safe routes, hidden dangers, and quiet shortcuts. A fox rarely chooses the long or risky path. A thought from a lively discussion you once heard comes to mind. Some specialists speculate that Neanderthals could imitate the silent gait of certain winter animals, adjusting their posture to minimize noise. Others think they simply learned by repetitive observation rather than imitation. Watching the group now, either explanation feels possible. Their steps are soft, their clothing moves without rustle, even their breath seems slower. You move quietly with them, feeling your heartbeat match the subtle rhythm of the land. Each step becomes intentional. Each shift in weight becomes careful. You feel the strange satisfaction of blending with your surroundings, becoming one more shape among the snowy hills. Suddenly, a hunter crouches and presses a palm to the snow. You kneel beside them. At first, the surface seems smooth, but then you see it. A shallow imprint, a partial track. You touch it. The snow is not fully compacted, meaning the track is new, very new. The hunter lifts their face to the wind and sniffs the air. The group grows still. A soft, steady breath rolls across the snow from beyond the next hill. Not wind, something heavier. The ground vibrates slightly. You feel it in your fingertips. The hunters begin moving into a formation that reduces their silhouette. They lower themselves and angle their bodies behind shrubs. You follow suit, crouching low. Your breaths slow into warm clouds. Then you see them. A small herd of deer moving near the ridge. Their bodies glide across the snow with such lightness that they barely leave tracks. The Neanderthals watch without approaching. This is not a hunt. Tonight their priority is safety. The deer, however, offer crucial information. They choose routes that avoid unstable ground and dangerous pockets of deep snow. When they hesitate, it means something is wrong. When they move confidently, the path is sure. You realize the group is learning not how to track the deer, but how to follow their logic. The deer pause briefly, ears lifted. Then they continue forward, heading toward a slope that descends gently into a sheltered basin. A hunter nods. The group rises slowly and begins to shadow the herd from a distance. You feel a quiet thrill inside you. Winter teaches through animals far more than through the land alone. As you walk, you notice how the Neanderthals keep their profiles low. When passing open areas, they blend into rocky shadows. When crossing snowy expanses, they move along ridges where their silhouettes break into uneven shapes. Their movements flow naturally, as if rehearsed 1,000 times. Another idea drifts into your mind. Some researchers argue that blending with the landscape also helped Neanderthals avoid threats from other predators. Others think it was primarily a hunting trick. Tonight, as you move with them, both explanations feel true. Survival in winter is not about one skill. It is about many skills woven together like fibers of a rope. As dusk approaches, the shadows deepen. The group reaches the basin the deer favored. The land dips into a broad hollow bordered by stone outcrops shaped by wind. The cold eases slightly here, trapped by the curvature of the ground. The air feels still, almost warm compared to the open plain. The hunters check the snow for depth. The ground here is firm, solid, safe. A small fire is prepared, but kept low, shielded by stones to avoid casting long shadows. You sit beside it, absorbing the warmth. Nearby, the children curl beneath hides. Adults stretch their muscles slowly, massaging warmth back into fingers stiffened by silence and cold. You look around and marvel at how naturally they merge with this world. They make no loud claims upon it. They leave no dramatic marks. They simply move through winter with quiet respect, becoming part of the cold landscape rather than standing against it. As night settles, the group huddles closer. You feel the calm weight of the moment settling inside you. You have learned fire, clothing, shelter, food, care. And now you learn how to blend into the land so completely that winter hardly notices you. You breathe in the cool air and close your eyes for a moment, listening to the distant sound of snow shifting on stone. You feel ready for what tomorrow brings. You rise with the group at first light, the soft grey of dawn spreading slowly across the winter basin. The air feels gentler this morning, almost hesitant, as if the cold itself is tired from the long night. Frost clings to the edges of the hides, sparkling faintly. As the Neanderthals shake off the chill and begin their slow preparations to move, you sense a quiet shift in their mood. Something feels reverent, reflective. Today is not about learning from the land or watching the sky. Today is about remembering those who came before, whose footsteps shaped every winter path the group now walks. The group begins to climb a narrow ridge that curves upward like a massive, snow-smoothed spine. You follow behind, breathing deeply as the cold air fills your chest. When you reach the top, the world opens before you in a wide expanse of white, stretching all the way to a distant horizon tinted with pale gold. A perfect place for memory, a place where silence holds weight. The group gathers in a loose circle. No one speaks. Instead, they lower themselves to sit on the cold ground, cloaks wrapped close, faces turned toward the rising light. You settle among them, feeling the hush of the moment wrap around you like a soft blanket. In this frozen world, remembering is not a luxury. It is a way of passing wisdom forward, preserved not in words but in stories spoken softly around winter fires. A widely recognized insight among prehistoric researchers is that Neanderthal societies likely had rich traditions of shared knowledge and memory. Not elaborate myths carved in stone, but stories etched into daily rhythms. Watching the group now, you feel that truth settle into your bones. The eldest member leans forward slightly and touches the snow with one broad palm. They draw a simple line, not a symbol, but a gesture. You watch as the others nod. This is how the group marks remembrance. Through small motions that hint at lives lived before, at cold endured countless times, at lessons earned through hardship and passed down without losing their warmth. A young hunter places a smooth stone at the center of the circle. The stone is not special in appearance, but it holds meaning. Perhaps it belonged to a predecessor, someone who taught them which paths were safe or how to recognize the quiet cry of the wind before a storm. Perhaps it was carried across many winters and kept as a reminder of endurance. You reach your hand out, touching the stone gently. It is cool, but you imagine the traces of past hands that once held it. Another member adds a piece of antler, carved faintly with shallow grooves. The grooves catch the morning light. You wonder if each mark stands for a memory, a journey, or a life saved. The group regards the antler with quiet respect. Even without words, you feel the presence of ancestors woven into the ritual. A soft thought rises in your mind. Some researchers have suggested that Neanderthals may have passed stories orally, using gesture, tone, and shared experiences rather than complex language. Others argue they might have used symbolic objects to express memory. Watching this scene unfold, the boundary between the two ideas blurs beautifully. Objects and gestures merge into a kind of ancient poetry. A child steps forward, shaking off their hesitation. They kneel beside the offerings and place a small feather beside the stone. A simple gift, yet the moment feels significant. You watch the older members smile softly, touched by the child's instinct to participate. Even the smallest child carries memory now, contributing to a chain stretching into the deep past. The elder begins humming, not loudly, just a low, steady vibration that settles into the snow and spreads through your chest. The sound feels ancient, like something carried across hundreds of winters. You close your eyes briefly and feel the hum resonating through your bones. The others join in, each voice layering gently over the next. No harmonies, no melody, just voices vibrating together in acknowledgement of those who came before. The sound flows upward into the cold air and seems to blend with the wind, almost as if the land itself is listening. When the humming fades, the group rises slowly. The stone, the antler, and the feather remain in the snow. A small memory bundle left for the world. Not a shrine, not a monument. Just a quiet reminder placed along the path for anyone who may pass in winters to come. A hunter gestures for you to follow them to the edge of the ridge. They point toward a distant valley, where faint lines cut across the snow in patterns that look almost human, trails from seasons past. You imagine those trails made by ancestors walking with equal determination, braving storms, finding shelter, raising children and surviving winters that look just like this one. It dawns on you that the land itself holds memory. Every valley, every cave, every drift shaped by ancient wind. The group does not only remember ancestors, they remember landscapes that sustained them. They remember where food gathers longest, where storms strike hardest, where the ground holds warmth even in deep cold. Another member approaches with a small pouch made of hide. They open it and reveal a handful of dark earth from a sheltered cave. You recognize the scent instantly, warm, mineral-rich, carrying traces of many fires. The hunter sprinkles the earth onto the snow before the stone and feather. The contrasting colors look striking, dark against white. Memory placed gently on winter's canvas. A playful but poignant detail from something you once heard surfaces. Some imagine that early humans sometimes carried bits of earth or ash from important places, using them to connect their present journey to past lessons. Whether this is literal or symbolic, it feels deeply right in this moment. The group stands quietly for a while longer. Snowflakes drift gently around you, falling softly on the memory offerings. The flakes cling like tiny pearls before melting slightly into the objects. You feel a peaceful shiver spread down your spine. When the elder finally turns to continue the journey, the others follow without a word. The snow remains undisturbed, but for the small cluster of objects. You take one last look before moving onward. The stone gleams faintly. The antler catches the dawn light. The feather rests lightly beside them, trembling in the soft breeze. You walk behind the group, feeling a calm weight in your chest. Not heaviness, but groundedness. You have witnessed the way memory moves quietly through winter, shaping each decision and strengthening the bonds that keep the group alive. As the ridge slopes downward, the world around you changes again. Trees gather at the edges of the path. The wind shifts. New lessons wait ahead. But for now, you carry the presence of those ancient ancestors with you, like warm breath beneath your cloak. You descend the ridge with the group, carrying the quiet weight of memory as the landscape begins to shift in front of you. The basin behind fades into pale distance while new forms rise gently from the snow. The world feels different now. Not warmer, not softer, but subtly changed, as if winter itself has taken a breath and rearranged the plains during the night. The Neanderthals sense this immediately. Their eyes scan the horizon with deeper focus. You can almost feel their minds adjusting, calculating what these changes mean for the days ahead. The land stretches into slow rolling hills shaped by wind that blows in long sweeping strokes. Drifts have moved. Ice has thickened in unexpected places. Thin lines of frost snake across the ground like pale scars. The group pauses to absorb these details. You feel yourself doing the same, letting the cold whisper its information. One of the hunters kneels beside a mound of snow that was not here yesterday. They scrape away the top layer to reveal a thin crust of ice beneath. Beneath that, the snow has compacted tightly, as if pushed by a heavy force. The hunter shakes their head slightly. This is not natural drifting. This is winter shifting the landscape. A common interpretation among experts is that ancient people tracked these transformations carefully, noticing when rivers froze deeper, when snowbanks collapsed, or when wind reshaped entire paths. Watching the Neanderthals now, you understand how essential this vigilance must have been. The eldest member walks forward and studies the distant horizon. The air carries a tremor of warmth from the low sun, but the ground remains cold enough to betray no thaw. The elder kicks lightly at a narrow channel of snow, revealing a dark patch of earth beneath. It smells of damp soil, sharp and mineral-rich. The scent sends a ripple of alertness through the group. Exposed earth could mean recent movement of animals or melting from underground springs. Either possibility hints at change. A faint memory of something you once read surfaces. Some specialists propose that shifting winter patterns may have forced prehistoric groups to modify their seasonal routes repeatedly. Others think these changes provided opportunities, revealing new shelters or feeding grounds. Imagining both views, you observe the group now with renewed curiosity. Snowflakes drift lightly from the sky. They are thin, dry, and carried sideways by a subtle wind. A hunter catches one on their fingertip and watches it dissolve instantly. The flake's structure tells them something you cannot fully grasp at first. Then it clicks. Dry flakes often mean colder air aloft, while warmer air near the ground can create a deceptive layering. The group begins adjusting their clothing. Hoods are pulled tighter. Extra wrappings are secured around wrists. You follow their lead instinctively. As you walk, the terrain becomes uneven. Strange ripples mar the surface of the snow, as if a giant hand dragged fingers across it. The hunters examine these ripples carefully. You run your fingers along them and feel an odd stiffness, different from the fluffy powder of earlier days. The ripples suggest wind from a new direction, perhaps stronger than the night before. The group turns slightly to account for the shift, trusting the land's language. Soon the path leads into a valley where the cold deepens sharply. Your breath thickens in the air. Frost clings to your eyelashes. Even the smallest movement sends a tiny cloud drifting from your lips. The Neanderthals slow their pace, conserving energy. You do the same. The valley floor is treacherous in a way that feels almost invisible. Beneath the snow, thin layers of ice may be waiting. One misstep could break the surface. A hunter taps the snow with the butt of a spear. A dull, heavy sound follows. Safe. They tap again a few steps away. This time, the sound rings sharper, more hollow. Not safe. The group veers left without speaking, adjusting route purely through shared understanding. You find yourself tuning your ears to the tones as well, beginning to recognize what each sound means. A child slips slightly, but an adult catches them by the wrist with gentle strength. The child adjusts their footing and continues walking with renewed focus. In this changing landscape, even children adapt quickly. They do not fear the shifts. They navigate them with small steps of confidence. Ahead, the valley narrows into a strange corridor shaped by ice that glints with a faint blue hue. The walls look like frozen waves frozen mid-curl. You feel awe ripple through you as the group steps into the corridor. The air feels colder here, more still. Every sound echoes softly. The crunch of snow underfoot becomes a delicate crackle. The group moves silently. A hunter stops and places their palm against the icy wall. You touch the surface too. It feels glassy and smooth, colder than anything you have touched so far. A thin layer of frost melts beneath your warmth, revealing tiny bubbles suspended within. You feel the ancientness of this place. Layers of ice built over countless days, shaped by winter's shifting moods. A curious detail flickers into your mind. Some paleoclimate studies suggest that sudden shifts in winter patterns may have forced ancient groups to abandon familiar shelters and move toward new territories. Whether the change happened over years or decades, the transition demanded quick adaptation. The corridor you walk through now feels like the kind of place that might form suddenly, unexpected yet navigable, if approached with patience and care. The group emerges from the icy corridor into a wide plateau where snow swirls lightly in circles. The wind here is calmer but unpredictable, creating tiny whirlwinds that lift flakes into spirals. The Neanderthals watch these spirals with interest. One follows the pattern of a swirling column, counting its rotations before it dissolves. The frequency tells them how the wind changes ahead. You find the behavior strangely mesmerizing. A hunter kneels and brushes snow from a patch of ground. They uncover a frozen crust mottled with faint cracks. They study the pattern carefully. Cracks like this can form when the ground shifts slightly from temperature changes or when buried ice pockets collapse. You watch their expression. They seem thoughtful rather than alarmed. Shifting land is part of winter's rhythm. You simply adapt. As you continue, the group reaches a rocky rise where dried grasses poke through the snow. The grasses, once soft and golden in summer, stand stiff and brittle now. A hunter bends one gently and listens to the pitch of the snap when it breaks. Higher pitch means drier, colder air. Lower pitch suggests moisture and potential thaw. The pitch is crisp and sharp today. The cold is holding firm. A faint smell reaches you. Metallic, faintly sweet. The scent of oncoming frost. The hunters inhale deeply and share subtle nods. This scent means the night ahead will be harsher than the last. Preparation is needed. The group stops at a sheltered nook formed by two large boulders. They begin gathering snow to build a wind barrier. Snow, when packed tightly, becomes surprisingly solid, holding back gusts that cut through even the thickest furs. You help shape the wall, pressing your palms into the snow until it compacts into a firm, icy plank. One of the hunters arranges stones in a semicircle, creating a place for a small fire. The stones warm quickly once flames catch. The fire will be modest, hidden from distant eyes, but strong enough to warm hands and faces. The air around the fire feels heavier, almost comforting. As you sit with the group, you look across the plateau. The landscape has changed dramatically since morning. Winter reveals new faces every few hours. Yet the Neanderthals adapt with fluid grace. They do not fight the changes. They flow with them. You reflect on this as the fire flickers softly. Adaptation here is not dramatic or swift. It lives in quiet decisions. The angle of a step, the choice of a path, the careful reading of snow and sky. This is how they endured 400,000 winters. As the light fades and the wind hums a quiet tune across the plateau, you feel yourself becoming part of the group's unfolding rhythm. Winter has shifted again, but so have you. You pull your cloak tighter, breathe in the clean, cold air, and prepare for the next lesson hidden in the frozen world ahead. You rise with the group as the fire's warmth fades into morning chill, stepping out from beneath the rock shelter and into a world that feels sharper than the day before. The cold does not simply touch your skin now. It seems to glide across it with knowing fingers, testing your readiness. Yet the Neanderthals show no hesitation. Their movements remain smooth and steady, as if winter's trials have become familiar companions. You walk with them onto the open plateau, ready to understand how they faced season after season without letting fear shape their steps. The sky stretches wide above you, pale and cloudless. That alone feels unusual. Clear skies often mean colder days. The hunters notice too. They tilt their faces upward, studying the light. It has that translucent quality that winter sunlight takes on when the air is brutally cold. You feel it on your cheeks. A quiet sting, the kind that warns you to guard your warmth more carefully. The group moves into a line, steps synchronized but unhurried. You sense something new in their pace, something that blends confidence with caution. They are not rushing to shelter or fleeing danger. They are simply walking into winter without flinching. You feel your own posture straighten as you mirror their calm. Ahead, the land drops into a broad valley carved by ancient winds. Snow lies thick and smooth, but the surface tells a story if you look closely. Here and there, subtle patterns appear: swirls, ridges, tiny waves shaped by shifting gusts. One of the hunters kneels and places a palm on the snow. They run their fingers along the faint ridges, reading them like lines on a map. You join them, trying to feel what they feel. The ridges tell of wind running low across the surface. The lines mean the snow has hardened slightly overnight. The hunters exchange nods. Conditions are cold but stable. Even without words, their confidence radiates outward like a warm breath. You find comfort in that steadiness. A widely discussed idea among winter researchers is that ancient human groups developed mental models of the seasons, not in diagrams, but in patterns of behavior learned over generations. Watching the Neanderthals now, you feel those models pulsing beneath every step they take. They know this cold. They know what it asks of them, and they know how to answer. You move farther into the valley, and the wind begins shifting, curling gently around your legs. The hunters adjust their cloaks. Their silhouettes narrow, their heads lower slightly. They move as one, shaping themselves into forms that winter cannot easily penetrate. You memorize their posture, feeling the power of small adjustments that conserve heat. The injured hunter continues riding the sled, supported on both sides by strong, steady hands. Their breath rises in soft clouds, steady and untroubled. The elder, though still wrapped tightly in furs, walks on their own with quiet determination. You watch their steps. Slow, yes, but sure. The group's support holds them steady. As you continue, the snow brightens under the rising sun. Light glimmers across its surface like scattered silver. The brightness forces you to squint. A hunter notices and gestures for the group to shield their eyes with fur-lined gloves. Snow glare can blind even the strongest eyes. You follow their example and feel relief soften the strain around your brow. A small memory of something you once learned flickers through you. In harsh climates, snow blindness has affected countless travelers across human history. Perhaps Neanderthals adapted through simple habits like this, using hands, hides, or even narrow slits between fingers to protect their vision. The gesture feels timeless. As the group moves deeper into the valley, the ground begins to rise again toward a long ridge, etched with cracks and snow-softened boulders. A hunter raises a hand. Everyone slows. You sense a subtle awareness traveling through the group. A new challenge lies ahead. Not danger exactly, just a shift in terrain that demands respect. The snow grows uneven, hiding pits and frozen hollows beneath fragile crust. The hunters test each step before committing their weight. You follow closely, feeling the snow flex beneath your feet. Sometimes it holds firm, sometimes it dips gently. Occasionally it collapses with a soft sigh, sending your boot a few centimeters deeper than expected. But you stay steady, using the group's path as a guide. A break appears between two large stones. Not a cave, just a sheltered crevice. One of the hunters ducks inside and returns with a piece of dried wood, likely left intentionally during an earlier pass through this region. You smile softly at the cleverness of it. The group creates a network of hidden resources across their territory. Nothing elaborate, just small caches of useful things to ease their journeys. As you continue rising along the ridge, the wind intensifies. It whistles through narrow gaps between rocks, sending a swirl of icy particles dancing across the snow. The hunters tuck their chins deeper into their furs. Movement becomes slower, more deliberate. Yet still, no one appears troubled. They are used to this. Winter's breath is simply another presence to acknowledge. A distant rumble rolls across the valley. You freeze, heart rising. But the hunters remain calm. They recognize the sound instantly. Snow shifting on a far slope. Not an avalanche close enough to threaten, just winter rearranging itself again. One hunter glances at the distant ridge, reading the slope's angle and the distribution of new snow. They nod once. Safe. A soft thought occurs to you. Many experts suggest that ancient humans developed a deep awareness of geography, sound, and light long before formal navigation existed. Their bodies became instruments tuned to the land. Watching this group, you feel that insight vividly. As the ridge flattens, you see a vast plain stretching beyond. It gleams under the morning sun, smooth, beautiful, and painfully exposed. The group pauses before stepping onto it. The hunters huddle briefly, not in fear, but in strategy. This open space will require discipline and endurance. You feel your breathing shift, preparing for the long walk. The Neanderthals move onto the plain in a formation that breaks the wind. The strongest take the outer edges. Children and elders remain sheltered inside. The injured hunter rides close to the center. You find your place near them, letting the stronger bodies shield you. The cold presses harder here, flattening itself against you like an icy hand. Yet inside the formation, warmth lingers. You sense how effective this shared rhythm is. The wind tries to claw at your cloak, but the group's structure holds firm. You move as one slow, steady creature. Footsteps thud softly in unison. Breath rises in faint waves. For a moment, you feel almost suspended in time, a tiny procession crossing a silent, glittering world. Deep in the plain, one of the hunters stops abruptly. They lower to their knee and brush aside a thin layer of snow. Beneath it lies a patch of ground where the surface appears cracked, yet warm faintly to the touch. You kneel beside them, intrigued, a geothermal pocket perhaps, warmer air rising from beneath. The hunters exchange looks of quiet satisfaction. This little patch offers a hidden gift, a place to rest briefly without losing heat to the earth. They gather around it, lowering themselves carefully. The warmth radiates through the snow like a gentle breath. You sit too and feel heat rising into your bones. It is not strong, but in winter, even a faint touch of warmth feels like a blessing. The children laugh softly, holding their palms above the warm patch. The elder sighs with relief, leaning back against a stone. The injured hunter shifts their weight, relaxing into the gentle heat. You breathe deeply, letting the warmth soften the tightness in your muscles. A faint memory of a discussion you once heard returns. Some specialists believe certain ancient groups used natural warm spots like this as seasonal markers, returning to them year after year. Others speculate that such places became quiet gathering spots, or moments of rest in difficult journeys. Sitting here now, both ideas feel possible. When the group rises again, their energy has renewed. The cold waits for you outside the warm pocket, but you meet it with quiet confidence. You walk into the wind with your shoulders steady. The group moves forward, as if winter itself has become a familiar companion rather than an adversary. As you near the far edge of the plain, the land begins to shift once more into gentle slopes studded with low brush. The wind softens, the cold eases. You feel the promise of another shelter waiting beyond the hill. You lift your gaze. The path ahead glimmers faintly in the fading afternoon light. You follow the group with calm certainty. Winter stretches around you, vast and unforgiving, yet you feel no fear rising inside. Not now. You have walked with them long enough to feel what they feel. Strength, skill, insight. And above all, the quiet confidence that comes from knowing winter possesses many challenges, but none they cannot face. You follow the Neanderthals into a gentle slope where the afternoon light softens into a muted silver, settling across the land as if winter is slowly lowering its voice. The cold no longer bites in sharp angles. Instead, it presses close with a deep, steady hum, a reminder that night is on its way. The group moves with quiet purpose, their silhouettes calm and grounded. You sense that this final stretch of the day carries a kind of quiet wisdom, a gathering of everything winter has taught them. You feel it settling into your own breath as you walk. The slope leads into a small sheltered bowl of land, almost perfectly round, where wind glides over the top and leaves the interior strangely still. The moment you step inside, the air feels different, muffled, gentle. It is as if the world has cupped its hands around this small hollow to offer one last moment of peace. The Neanderthals recognize it immediately. Their shoulders loosen, their pace slows. They begin preparing for night. One of the hunters approaches a patch of snow pressed flat by earlier travelers. They kneel and smooth it with steady hands. Their touch is light but deliberate. You kneel beside them and notice how firm the snow becomes when packed carefully. It will hold warmth better later. Another hunter gathers dried branches from a cluster of leaning shrubs. The branches snap cleanly in the cold, releasing a faint scent of sap and earth. As they begin to build a small fire, the injured hunter settles onto a hide, stretching out their leg with greater ease than yesterday. The elder sits nearby, resting their back against a smooth boulder warmed by the fading sun. You watch their eyes soften as they gaze out at the horizon, as if absorbing the last light of the day into their memory. A widely shared observation among researchers is that Neanderthals likely ended each day with moments of reflection and quiet interaction, not through complex rituals but through the slow gathering of bodies around fire, the sharing of breath and warmth. Watching the group now, you feel how deeply this practice shaped their resilience. The fire catches easily. Sparks rise like tiny fireflies and vanish into the cold air. A gentle orange glow spreads across the hollow, painting the furs of the group in soft amber. The warmth touches your cheeks. You lean closer, listening to the crackle of the branches and the low murmur of breathing around you. One of the hunters unpacks a small bundle of preserved meat gathered from the cache earlier. They slice it with a stone blade, offering portions to others. The scent rises slowly, rich and savory. A child holds a thin strip over the fire until it warms, then smiles shyly as an adult ruffles their hair. You sense the ease in the moment, the quiet contentment that comes only after a day spent navigating winter with skill and cooperation. A tender memory surfaces in your thoughts. Some archaeologists speculate that evening gatherings allowed prehistoric groups to pass on subtle knowledge, not through formal teaching but through stories shared in low voices. Others believe these gatherings were moments to strengthen emotional bonds. As you watch the group now, you see both ideas merging beautifully. The fire grows steadier. Shadows flicker across the snow. The group settles into a loose circle. No one speaks, yet the silence feels full, not empty. You hear a faint crunch of snow outside the hollow as some woodland creature passes by. The Neanderthals glance toward the sound briefly, then return to their calm. They know the rhythm of winter creatures now. Nothing about the noise concerns them. The sky darkens slowly, shifting from pale gold to muted grey. Stars begin to appear one by one, shimmering softly above the ridge. A hunter lifts their face, studying the sky with familiar ease. A faint smile touches their lips. The weather ahead looks clear. No storm tonight. You observe the way the group breathes together, inhaling slowly, exhaling in steady plumes that rise and curl above the fire. The children nestle closer to adults. The injured hunter shifts, finding a comfortable position. The elder leans forward and traces small circles in the snow with their fingertip. You mimic the motion quietly, feeling the cold surface soften under your touch. A small bundle of aromatic herbs is tossed onto the fire. The smoke deepens into a warm, sweet scent. It fills the hollow gently, soothing your senses. You breathe deeply, letting the scent settle into your lungs. Your shoulders relax, your thoughts slow. One hunter reaches into their pouch and retrieves a smooth stone shaped by long use. They hold it in their palm, turning it slowly. You realize it is a keepsake, something carried through many seasons. They place the stone near the fire, letting its surface warm. A gesture of quiet gratitude for another day endured. As the night strengthens, the group begins gathering hides, arranging them in overlapping layers across the compacted snow. The hides rustle softly, releasing faint hints of smoke, fur, and the sun they once absorbed. You help lay them out, smoothing the edges until the area becomes a warm, soft nest large enough for everyone. They settle together beneath the hides, forming a cluster of warmth and breath. You slide in among them, feeling bodies press gently against yours. The heat spreads quickly, melting the last chill from your fingers. A child curls near your side, their small hand resting on your arm. An adult drapes a hide over your shoulder to seal in warmth. The closeness feels comforting, grounding, deeply human. As the fire burns low, the group shifts into a state of calm half-sleep. Slow breathing surrounds you. The glow of embers casts a soft crimson light across the hollow. You close your eyes, letting the warmth soak into your bones. The air hums with the faint sounds of winter night. A sigh of wind slipping past stones, a soft echo in the distance, the whisper of cooling snow. In this final moment before you drift, you understand something profound. Neanderthals did not survive winter because they were fierce or unyielding. They survived because they moved with patience, listened carefully, shared warmth freely, and trusted the rhythms of the land. Confidence was not bold. It was quiet, steady, and rooted in countless small choices made day after day. You breathe deeply, letting their wisdom settle over you like another layer of warmth. And as the night deepens, you feel yourself sinking slowly into the soft cradle of winter, surrounded by the gentle strength that carried these ancient people through 400,000 winters. The fire dwindles into soft embers, glowing faintly beneath the slowly lowering darkness. The breath of the group rises and falls in long, steady waves, each exhale mingling with the cooling air, until you can barely tell where one warm sigh ends and the next begins. You lie there beneath the layered hides, your muscles loosening into the gentle embrace of shared heat, the steady rhythm of ancient winter settling softly around your mind. The snow outside has quieted to a soft shimmer beneath the stars. The wind drifts lightly along the hollow, brushing the edges of the hides with a whisper that feels more like a lullaby than a warning. Even the air itself has softened, losing its sharp bite and turning cool, smooth and calming. Your breathing slows. Your eyelids grow heavier with each flicker of the embers. The world around you fades into simple sensations. The warmth at your back, the weight of the hide across your chest, the muted glow that pulses like a tiny heartbeat at the center of the fire. The cold no longer feels like a presence to resist. It becomes a quiet backdrop, a gentle contrast that makes the warmth feel richer. You feel yourself drifting, sinking deeper, as though the snow beneath you has softened into something warm and welcoming. Every sound grows distant. Every movement inside the shelter grows slower, quieter. Your thoughts begin to smooth at the edges, losing their angles, becoming soft and round like winter light. You are safe here, safe in the calm night, safe beneath the quiet sky, safe among companions who move gently through the cold. Let your breath settle, let your shoulders loosen, let the quiet cradle you. The night holds you gently now,